Okay, looks like excellent start. Let's make sure. Okay, we got the right audio source. That's good too. So today I'm going to try to cram in as much as I can for you guys. The plan is to, somebody has asked on the Discord that I go ahead and look at and give some input on this Destiny versus Mr. Girl on the topic of like labeling people Nazi and how we're doing it. What's the best way to do it? Should we do it at all? How do, your positions kind of fit into that? And my understanding is on the Reddit, there's plenty of people who are against Steven on this. And then, obviously there's a lot of frustration in the way that these two are engaging with each other on the topic, where, the buck stops at that and who's more to blame there. I'm sure we'll find out going line by line. I haven't done a line by line for any of this stuff. I really wouldn't like to, like in terms of like a full on, doing the entire thing line by line and getting the transcripts and taking a bunch of notes, because the way that these two are communicating in all of the talks that they've had on this makes it really, really, really complicated to do that. And if it was a complicated conversation that simply required like a complicated approach, I would totally understand that. The problem is I feel like this is like a really simple conversation that two people are making way more difficult than it has to be. And again, whose fault that is more of, I don't know. But it just feels like it's way more complicated than it needs to be. But who knows? Because I've only casually watched this stuff. Oftentimes my opinions will change as I'm looking at a line by line. That might be why some of my takes come off as like autistic or whatever people call it. Because if you're looking at something casually and you're just kind of consuming it and letting it waft over you, that's very different than taking notes. And taking notes is going to be very different than taking notes on top of a transcript or you're pausing all the time. And doing that process is going to be different than the outcome you would get if you did that same process like 2 or 3 times, right? So depending on how deep you go with something, I think that you are getting a better understanding of like the material facts of the matter, but you're going to have a more difficult time relating to people who had just consumed it at level 1, right? And that's kind of the difficulty there. And part of why like I wouldn't be interested in doing that for the entirety of these talks. Maybe I'll put a dono goal if you guys really wanted me to, because I should have time to do that in the background, but I wouldn't find it like particularly fun or anything. Let me go ahead and make sure that we are live on both places. That should be good. Okay. And again, because we're having Destiny on, we're going to have to dip out on Twitch, a little bit into this, which is unfortunate, but that is how it is. Booksmarts is about to lose his mind for this debate. Well, I mean, it depends on which one we pick, and if we're going slow, perhaps not. Hi, sexy boy. What's up, Rezus? Their talks were so messy. Destiny keeps repeating same thing, and Mr. Girl just doesn't pay attention. I think Mr. Girl likes feeling like ignored truth teller. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's tough. I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be more complicated than any of us think it is. Or if it's simple, that's great. I have no idea. It's really tough to have strong opinions on something when I haven't gone through this process. And normally this process happens like offline. But today I thought maybe it would be cool because I was about to do it anyways for their most recent conversation that they had about this. I was going to like lay it out in Notion, my note-taking software, and like try to get down to the bottom of like, am I right or wrong in my hypothesis about what's going on here and like where the sticking point is and like how to solve it. I don't know where I'm at with that. Actually, because we have a hard stop at 12:30, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wait, no, because it's going to be at, I hate time zones. So I have it in Pacific time, but that's not my time zone. So I have to be out of here at 10:30, which means we have like 3 hours. So that is not a lot of time for what we try to do. What time is it where you are, Book? It is 7:23 p.m. So yeah, I'm wondering if we should just skip the intro shit. I think we should just skip the intro shit and I should just immediately start talking to you guys. One thing I'm going to have to do is turn on all my monitors real quick, which I'll let you guys look at my beautiful face while I try to figure that out. Hello, everybody. I know it's we haven't been talking much, but we are going to be more this month, hopefully. Don't quote me on that, though. Let's do extend these displays, keep changes. Let's go ahead and plug in my USB-C monitor, which, by the way, if you're on the move or you just want a really quick implementation to have a small second monitor just to throw stuff on for reference, I would highly, highly recommend just getting a little USB-C cheapo external monitor. They're very thin. They don't weigh a lot. They travel easy. And it's one USB-C cable, which, you know, could double as something else in your luggage, right? Because you could use it to charge a lot of modern day phones and devices and stuff like that. So I would highly recommend it. I get a lot of use out of it. Just trying to fill air while I go ahead and get all my shit positioned here. All right, we'll put that there. Let's go ahead and exit anything that would dox me, which is a lot of shit in front of me right now. Okay, get rid of all that, and get my chat in front of me. Booksmarts! What's up, Vixen? Change his main issue whenever Destiny appeals him, so when they get past... you know, here's the thing, Slivla, and everybody else. We'll have our hypotheses. I always take with a huge grain of salt anything anybody tells me about what went right or wrong in a conversation, or even like engaging with it seriously until we've done the line by line. Because like, I can't trust myself to do that. And my whole job is to like be able to do this for you guys. And I don't trust myself to just like do it offhandedly. Like I don't trust the answer that my brain gives me. So to trust the answer of like a random chatter, who's not doing it, you know? So I always take it with a grain of salt. That's why today we're going to go through the notes. But it is interesting to see where you guys are at before we do that. What your hypotheses are, right? Because science is all about that. You put forward a hypothesis with limited information, then you go ahead and test that, see if it's correct or not. But, you know, we'll see. Not that I think Mr. Girl has his own communication issues, but I kind of expect a little more from Destiny in these conversations regarding his ability to get to max. Let me just tell you what my hypothesis is before we get into it. And I think that the conversation we'll look into, and if you guys fight against me, maybe I'll change my idea of what conversation we're going to look at. Oh, fuck. You know what? I shouldn't do that because we're not even allowed to be live on Twitch. So I'll give my hypothesis and everything on Twitch, and then we'll move over to YouTube because Steven's banned on Twitch, so we can't cover it without risking a ban, which I don't want to do. Okay, so TLDR, what I think, and this is my completely uneducated opinion, I think that the solution to all of this is that Steven admits, like one thing that would help it is that Steven admits it was wrong and is wrong to joke about Nick being a Nazi. Because I feel like one like toe of his that's stuck in a bear trap that I think he would be a little bit more free if he were to release, like it would at least take one of the things off the plate that Mr. Girl is complaining about, is to just admit it was wrong to joke about Nick being a Nazi or to use all these different things, because he should already agree with that. He sees the problem of using this Nazi label. He sees that everybody has different definitions. He sees it distracts from what he wants to focus on, which are the positions. So he already is giving us all the points that would be necessary to then look at something like the way that he talks about Nick being a Nazi and go, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't do that, right? Like, okay, yeah, maybe that was wrong. In the same way that we could admit, and even Melina admits, that it was wrong to go in the chat and talk about Darius's dog dying and stuff, right? I feel like in a lot of conversations, we have a really easy give that's not given. This is a really easy give that I feel like should be given and isn't, and it irks me. How important that is, if it really would have changed the conversation, I don't know, because we haven't looked at it, but that's an immediate feeling that I get. And then another thing is Steven is focusing really hard on positions, which I totally agree with. And Max will give on the positions thing and go, yeah, I know, I like you for that, whatever, but that's not what I'm talking about. I feel like the constant introduction of the positions thing, when it's clear that Max already understands it, does as much to distract or add fluff into the conversation that's not necessary as what Max is doing at a lot of points. So if we're going to be upset at people adding a bunch of fluff into the conversation that really doesn't need to be there and isn't consequential in getting us to agree or disagree on stuff, I feel like that's kind of one thing that we probably don't need to keep repeating that. Max has those too, but I listen more closely to Steven because I like Steven more. So these are going to be a lot more Steven focused, because when I watch something off the dome, that's a lot of where I'm focusing. Max loses me when he talks a lot of the time, because when Max gives a statement, it's like 8 different things that I have a difficult time connecting in my head, and then I have a sneaking suspicion could be summarized in like a 2-sentence thing. But even when he summarizes it into 2 sentences, our 2 sentences have like 8 different subjects in them, and it like becomes equally complicated. So it's a lot like if you've ever tried learning Japanese, some Japanese sentences go on so long and are so complicated that by the end of it, I forget what the subject of the sentence was. And that's kind of like how I engage like offhandedly with Mr. Girl stuff, is that sometimes he'll be talking and talking and talking, and by the end of it, I get lost. Now, my brain tunes into like Steven's frequency like reasonably well, because I've watched a lot of his stuff. I think similarly on a lot of stuff, so like it's easier for me to follow. But when Max talks, sometimes it feels like it's in a different language and I'm losing stuff, and that's why like I feel there is the need to do the notes. But a lot of the time when I do the notes for Max, what ends up becoming apparent is he's just like repeating a lot of stuff or bringing up like things that are irrelevant to like getting his point across in a conversation, or they're inflammatory statements that are hurting our ability to have the conversation. And then I get frustrated, and then I feel bad for spending the time to break it down. And I begin to understand why past me had a hard time parsing what he's saying, because past me, when I'm watching it off the block or whatever, I'm tuning out a lot of the things that I end up realizing are unimportant when I look super close. So that's kind of TLDR of like how I'm interpreting a lot of this stuff. I don't have solid conclusions. I don't have solid answers for you guys, mostly because I haven't looked into it. I haven't broken it down. I haven't looked at a transcript, right? And that's what we'll be trying to do today. That's often true about Max's and his use of language, but he refuses to change. He won't change. So that's kind of another rough thing about Max. I was rooting for Mr. Girl because I was hoping he could convince Steven not to hang with Nick Fuentes. And no, I don't think he would ever do that. And if he does, make it clear to the audience that Nick is a legit monster. Mr. Girl failed, in my opinion. The problem is a lot of the Reddit agrees with Mr. Girl. So as we go through my process, I'll kind of we'll kind of break that down a little bit. We'll do that. In Slivla, I get the translator thing, but the problem is in some of the Notion uses cookies. Notion will reload, and then it just asks me about cookies again. Hold on. The problem is sometimes you say things that are adding stuff that Mr. Girl isn't saying. So, I mean, we'll see if we run into that in this talk. But here's what I'll do. Okay. I will switch scenes real quick so you can see what I'm looking at. And that worked wonderfully because we can all see what I'm looking at, right? What is this? Okay, that looks fine. Okay, I'm gonna put you guys in the other window. Bada bing, bada boom. If you're ever cringed out by my backgrounds, they were selected by people who watched me play League, because in between every game I would let people send me backgrounds. So I haven't selected any of these backgrounds. All right, so first thing I do is open up a Notion document. You can get Notion by going to notion.io and downloading it or using it in a web browser. I really like Notion. Go ahead and title it Mr. Girl v. Destiny. And I'm going to put Mr. Girl first because I guess a lot of people think he won. Mr. Girl v. Destiny on labels. We'll just say labels. That way I don't have Nazis sitting on my screen for the rest of today. Okay. And up at the top here, I'm going to put my initial thoughts. right? Because we want to keep track of those. If we don't write it down, it's very easy to change it later and pretend like we believe something that we didn't believe. So my initial thoughts are that that Steven needs to give on not doing Nazi jokes. That fits in with his other points. And it may move things forward. Right. And another thing that we had here is, what was it about Steven? Oh. Okay, so there we go. Now, the conversation that they had with Abba, with I think it was Abba and Gideon. I'm not going to look at that one because it's way more of a mess. I'm going to look at the most recent one that they had. You guys could convince me out of that if you want to, but that's where we'll start. Before we start that, I'm going to have to let the Twitch people go. If you use !YT or !YouTube, you can go to my YouTube channel and keep watching over there. We'll be live there. I unfortunately can't stream for you guys because Twitch is a platform that is seen fit to ban Steven. So I cannot do that on there. Dope shirt, bro. Thanks. I'm happy you think so. So there you go. The command is in the chat. I'll see you guys later. I will be dipping out from there. I will not be raiding or anything like that, but I'll see you guys over there. I'll give you a little bit here. I will say subscribe on the YouTube as well while you're over there. That definitely helps. You'll be able to see more of when I'm live. I've been making a lot of mistakes with platforming people that aren't allowed to be platformed on Twitch. Honestly, I would have like a Pikachu face if I got banned at any point because I fucked that up so many times, even if I delete the VOD. So there could be a day where I'm just banned on Twitch and you won't know when I'm live if you're not subscribed on YouTube. So in this little intermission period while I'm waiting for you guys to go over there, I will say subscribe on the YouTube because who knows, I could be gone from Twitch tomorrow. Yeah, you know, then it'll be water under the bridge. I'll just continue on YouTube with anything that I do. So that being said, I am going to end the stream over on YouTube or on Twitch. It's been good. Happy to have you guys, but I will talk to you later. All right, YouTube people. Now it's just us, me and my favorite chat, right? Until I get BGG working. Okay. So now that that's done, another thing that I normally do when I do these research streams is I look at the goals of the people that are involved, right? And a cool thing about Notion is I can get my headings just by doing that. I'll say Destiny, so it doesn't seem like I'm parasocial. And we'll do Mr. Girls, so I don't seem parasocial with him either, right? And rather than predict these from the outset, which normally I'll do by looking at a follow-up conversation. So normally, if there's some after debate talk where Steven talks about like his experiences in the debate or Max talks about his experiences in the debate, I'll go ahead and write their goals down underneath these headings. Another thing that I would do is underscore problems in a different toggle. So down here, I would put problems, right? And I would open that toggle up and I would put these two over there and I would write down what their problems are. We're not going to do that this time because, again, we're pressed for time and I'm just trying to walk you through what I would normally be doing here. And another thing that I would do in the problems, and one thing that we actually will be doing, is we'll look at different communities and what the communities thought. In this case, we'll kind of go on Reddit just briefly to see what they're talking about and then see if we can see that when we go through, right? So what you can see is what we're laying out is I'm going to look at how well did Destiny achieve his goals? How well did Mr. Girl achieve his goals? were the problems that they pointed out valid, and did they exist? And if so, where and to what extent? And for the community's problems, are those valid? And where did those exist? And where does that impression come from, regardless of whether or not it's true? And then how well do my initial thoughts fit into what we're watching? So the reason we get all this down is so we have these different hypotheses, these different goals and problems. So we have a kind of guiding principle for how we're going to consume the content that we're going to go consume. If I'm going into something dry, I'll do none of this. I'll have the transcript in front of me, and then I'll be writing down what I think the goals of the people are, what I think the problems that they're running into are, and what my initial thoughts are in the first run through of the conversation, right? And then I'll be keeping track of like quotes that are supporting all of those different thoughts as I'm going through. But again, we're not going to be looking at the problems that Destiny and Mr. Girl brought up. I'll keep it up because I think maybe Steven at the beginning of this video mentioned some, but we probably won't fill this in, nor will we the goals, but I like putting those in there. And this is one thing I love about Notion is you have these toggles that you could hide stuff. And then if you have lots and lots of stuff in a document, then you can kind of keep it organized as you're working through it. Are you going to look at Nick's community too? Hell no. No, I am not. As I said, we only have a limited amount of time, and I'm going to try to do the most with what time I have. This is as far as I got into this video. I made it to right around here, and I would like to restart way back here because at this point I see that we're just kind of repeating over and over and over and over and over again. So we'll go back to here and we'll see what this is. I will skip the intro and teasers as I normally do.
Let me start by saying,
oh, you guys, your kids will like that, but I don't think you guys can handle that. Let's do 1.2.
I like Mr. Girl. We're friends. I appreciate pushback, even though apparently I don't like.
Also, thank you to Anonymous for gifting a tier 1 sub to Nazi jokes. Good to see that we have some people in support of Nazi jokes. You pre-watched? Not the whole thing.
So yesterday in the conversation with him, I'm pretty sure he talked for 80% of the time, number one. Oh.
Okay. So this has no bearing on
also,
whatever.
Also, he accused me multiple times of being bad faith and dishonest and cowardly. Even.
All right. So we have a lot of stuff here. So problems. Destiny. Okay, so he's going to give us a quick rundown of all the things that he's upset about, and we'll just keep listening.
Though I'll bring him on as many times as he wants to have the conversation. Okay. And then he also accused me like 10 times of gaslighting. What the fuck? And I'm like, I'm trying so hard to write down, like, bro, I'm writing down everything you're saying. And I'm asking you, is it okay if I say, is that? And then I'm letting him talk for like 5 to 10 minutes, not 10 minutes, but I'm trying to fight. Or I'm letting him talk for like 5 minutes, and then I try to talk for like 20 seconds, and then I get off. I get cut off, and then he calls me cowardly for not answering the question. I was like, bro, I can't even speak. And then people.
Right. So you kind of see how I'm organizing these here.
To my subreddit, and there. When Destiny doesn't know how to respond, he just obfuscates. Bro, I don't have time to talk. I don't have time to say anything. I can't even speak. Max is really pushing Destiny up against the wall on whether or not Destiny regards Nick to be a Nazi or not. And then all of a sudden, the world becomes so complicated.
Sounds exactly like something a gaslighting coward would say.
Suddenly, out comes a philosophy of language conversation. Suddenly, the legitimate disagreement has faded away, and Max is to understand the complexity. Are you serious? It actually reminded me of how Vosh often goes to say that words don't mean anything, language is complicated route when not knowing what to say. Dude. I tried so many times yesterday to like, bro, I'm writing down exactly what you're saying. I'm trying to respond to exactly, and I can't talk at all, and I'm getting interrupted so many times. It's like unbelievable.
And we hear him. So we are already seeing repetition in things that kind of give us an indication where Steven's mind is at. He's very upset because he lets these conversations happen. He lets people speak for a long time. He's not able to speak much at all. And I don't think that really has anything to do with this point that we just brought up, right? Like, disproving that he's having a Vosh-esque appeal to like complication when he's losing in an argument, that he's trying to make something out to be very, very complicated when he feels like he's on the back foot. That's not really disproven by like, I wasn't able to speak very much. Not nearly as much, at least, as something like, saying he's cowardly and not answering a question when you're cutting him off. But all of this will also depend on how he's answering a question, right? This is the thing, is like, I get where he's coming from, but it will really depend on the specifics. So even with this recollection, you're going to have to remember specifically what his answers were like to give like a fair interpretation of like, was the response cowardly? Like, because you could be getting cut off when you're giving an irrelevant or obfuscatory or whatever response to a question, right? Because like, like you guys in the Mr. Wolf conversation, a lot of people believe that if he's starting to answer by going through history instead of defining what he thinks socialism is to him, and at the end of the answer is when he finally gives his answer about what socialism is, he's kind of obfuscating and he's throwing a lot of mud in the water, and that might be what you consider like a cowardly answer or a Vosh-esque appeal to like the complication of things, as opposed to really just like cutting to the heart of the matter and giving a quick answer, right? I don't think that necessarily is fair to apply to Steven in this situation based on what little I recall of how he answered the questions, but we'll see. That's kind of some of the stuff that I'm seeing so far. I think that calling him bad faith and saying that he's gaslighting, these are things that we probably don't ever want to let people do on the channel again. And I think that that's something that Steven is mentioning, is like, if you're saying that I'm gaslighting, that has to be kind of like a warning flag to, all right, we're going to have to put some ultimatums in the conversation or it needs to end. Because if that's your honest to God interpretation, if you think I'm lying or I'm gaslighting you, then we can't continue this, because like, it's only going to hurt you. Because if people grab onto this and you're continuing the conversation, it could be nothing but bad for you regardless of what you say. So, you can let him speak a lot. It won't matter. You could write everything down. It won't matter. So if people kind of grab onto this accusation and they believe in it, that's going to be a problem for you. That's a change he mentions he's going to make later. So all that's good.
Holy shit. It just shows how strong and consistent Max was being. What got me was when Destiny was being adamant about not labeling Nick a Nazi. Then when Max brings up that he called him a Nazi on Twitter, it's like an immediate goalpost shifting. I like Destiny a lot. I respect a lot. But him not being able to concede when he's clearly in the wrong is brutal to watch. I used to think it was one of his strengths. And I can't even ban these people now because Mr. Girl will throw a fit over it. Like, I'm not being able to I'm trying so hard. Yeah, I don't know. It almost feels like the Sam Cedar convo where like, I'm trying to write things down. I'm trying to respond point by point. I'm trying to be clear and concise to everything we're going. I'm like, you're a gaslighter. You're gaslighting me, and you are being abusive, and you're a gaslighter, and you're cowardly, and you're and I'm like, bro, I'm trying so hard. Are you serious? It's like unreal. I don't know if I need to just start like, I think in the combos, I'm not going to let him interrupt as much. When I talk to him in the future, I think I'm just gonna be like, hey, stop. I'm gonna start like shouting over him until, because like the amount of like being talked over. And then also I think I'm gonna start, this might be a new rule that I have in general. I think I'm gonna establish this for combos. As soon as somebody drops a bad faith or dishonest or gaslighting or whatever accusation, they either have to walk it back immediately or I'm just gonna cut the convo off. Because like for the last half of the convo, he's literally accusing me of lying the entire time. And people are still saying like, yeah, Max is being super consistent here. What? Are you serious? He's accusing me of lying. I can't say anything at this point. Like, Jesus. The philosophy of language game is funny because Destiny acts like he's reached an unprecedented understanding, when the reality is that he's gotten worse at language games, and it is causing confusion among his audience and the people he talks to. My favorite thing about that last convo was there were like 7 different definitions of Nazi that were floated around, and both Ava and JD had no idea what Nazi technically even meant, and they said that their audiences wouldn't know what Nazi meant. And then Max went on to say, well, actually, if you would ask a normal person in the street, you guys are online too much. If you ask a normal person, what does communist or Nazi mean? They'd be able to tell you.
As a normie, okay, because someone's not part of this debatosphere or whatever you guys got going on.
No.
I'd rather
No. The reason you don't know what a Nazi is because you are a terminally online debate bro. That's why you...
Now, I I feel like of all the people that put this on, I wouldn't put this on ABBA. I don't know if this is like either I don't really understand what ABBA does, or Mr. Girl doesn't really understand what ABBA does, or what? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that like a fair characterization of who ABBA is? Because my idea was ABBA's trying to be like an everyman online dude who talks about like real life dude problems. So if anything, it seems like his branding is meant to like keep like down to earth and whatever. So it seems like a very silly thing to say that I assume is coming from him not understanding ABBA, but I don't watch a lot of ABBA's content, right? I'll watch occasional things if they come up on my YouTube feed, but like I'm not like a super big fan or anything like that. So it could be I just miss shit, you know. ABBA's pretty online. He watches a shitload of anime and knows basically every red pill term. But is he a debate bro, right? Because like when Muk Nuk Hirup Nyan, whatever that Russian shit means, when Muk Nuk Hirup Nyan says that ABBA is as normie as it gets for content creators, I'm focused on this divide between like normie and like online debate bro. You could be really online and still be a normie. That happens a lot. Like, you have to realize in today's day and age, a lot of normies are just like really online people. Like, a lot of normies spend a lot of time on the internet. When you become not normie is when you become like really hard stuck in this kind of like niche of something. In the specific niche he's saying is the debate bro niche. I don't know if ABBA is a debate bro niche guy. He might be a red pill guy, but is he like a red pill super hard debate bro guy? I don't really think so. No, he's not. Okay. Yes, but not like ABBA appeals to normies. Yeah, I don't think that's all. Russian shit is read as Maxim Chorny. Okay, Maxim Chorny. Gotcha. Not
You don't know what a Nazi is. A normal person, if you go up to them on the street and you say that guy's a Nazi, they don't say, oh, this word is so overused. Oh my God, everybody says everybody's a Nazi. They know what it means, especially a older person. Like,
I would bet $100,000. I would bet $100,000. I would go up to 10 normies on the street, ask them what a Nazi is, and each of them would give me mostly incoherent definitions of it. I would bet. I will put my life savings on that. The fact that you sat there and said, was that?
Yeah, that's obviously true. If you ask somebody what a Nazi is, they're going to say somebody that doesn't like Jewish people. That's going to be or they'll say World War II Germany. That's what they're going to say. They're going to have no idea.
World War II Germany is a fine answer.
Hold on, no, because
that is what I'm saying.
I'm
saying no, it does. I'm saying look at pictures.
Oh my goodness. Like,
oh, I know. I'm so soy. I'm so soy, Steven. I'm so.
Well, and here's the thing: is like Steven kind of has him there, and he'll bring this up later in this conversation. Like, there's a big difference between Nazi and neo-Nazi. If we're being persnickety about the details, there is a big difference between those two things. How many Nazis are there versus neo-Nazis versus white supremacists? Like, when we really put on the glasses like Peter Parker in that meme, the fuzzy image turns into something completely different. All of a sudden we see that it's a lot more complicated than he's making it out to be. So like the kind of toe that we're putting in the water in that direction and the way that he's responding would lead me to believe if we would have kind of kept pursuing that, we'll kind of prove that Max is not understanding this stuff as much as he would think that he does. And that's probably the same way for normally people. They like when he says that they'll all have incoherent definitions, I do think that they'll feel strongly about their definitions for a lot of young people. I think a lot of young people will think very strongly about whatever definition they have of these different kinds of things. Same with old people. If you ask an old person what a communist is, they might not get close to your historical, factual, fucking political ideology, specific thing, but they'll feel very strongly about whatever belief or feeling they have about what the definition is, right? Anywho, I'm just going to let this play out. Booksmart, and that the chance of Mr. Girl leaving the Destiny orbit within 4 months is very increased. Oh, I don't know. Oh, you made it 2 messages. Some MG OGs had a real deep dive on this, and the overall impression is Steven is being insidiously Machiavellian. Okay.
Oh, overreacting.
Hold on. I'm telling you.
Let me finish.
I just said like 4 words, okay? The fact that you would appeal to older people knowing what a Nazi is. When we went through a whole era of the Red Scare, where my mom and dad think that every fucking Democrat is a communist means that obviously older people don't have good grasps of what these terms mean. Okay, and before we got into this era of politics,
Thinking
when I was younger,
Democrats are communists is not the same as not knowing what a communist is. If you ask them what a communist is, they're not going to say Hillary Clinton or AOC.
Yeah, they absolutely would.
No, they're going to say Stalin.
No, they're going to say no.
I don't know about that. I mean, here's the thing. We all float around in autopilot mode. And when you snap us out of autopilot mode, when you force somebody to take over the wheel of their Tesla and not have it be an autopilot, they will come up with better answers. So, for example, if I were to ask you on the street, hey, what's an example of like a Nazi off the top of your head or something? Your answer, if you're politically engaged, may be different than like, you know, because you might come up with a cheeky answer like AOC or something like that. If the question is about communism, I suppose. But if I asked you, you know, in the way that they do on that game show with that Harvey guy, with the Steve Harvey with the big ass mustache, and I asked it in that way, I think then we start to get the legitimate answers. Like, what is the safest answer that is the most accurate, that the most people would know about a good example of a Nazi? Hitler, obviously, maybe Goebbels, maybe like these big Nazi people, right? And same with communism. Oh, Stalin, Lenin, maybe you give like real answers. But I think when you just ask people off the bat, you get some crazy answers. I don't know if those crazy answers are the norm, though. It's really going to depend on who you ask. This whole bit of this conversation I feel is silly, though, because you're not really going to convince Max out of it. You all have different ideas about it. You're not able to test it. Like, it gets away from what you're actually trying to talk about. I don't think any of this in hindsight was like super handy because it didn't do anything for us.
If you say to somebody on the street, give me your best example. Give me your best example of a Nazi. You think that they're going to say what? Bush?
If you ask somebody what Trump? Is a communist, they're going to say somebody that is for big government spending. That's what they're going to say a communist is. Bro, I grew up in a Republican Party. Every single fucking Republican in the fucking.
I feel like this topic is so wide-ranging and vague that both Destiny and Mr. Girl are correct on this in their own way. That's what I think too, right? Like, it's an easy common sense answer. What is the best example of a Nazi? To say Hitler. Some people are gonna pick Nazis that are like modern day fascists, man, that I fucking hate. These fucking Republicans would take over the fucking government. You know what? Trump is the most prolific Nazi in our fucking modern day, man. He's out here fucking anti-democratic principles. He fucking hates immigrants, man. He hates the LGBTQ pluses, man. Like, yeah, I kind of get where both of you are coming from. Honestly, if I had to pick one, I like Mr. Girl's angle of this better. I think the other angle is a bit more silly. But yeah, sure, you might both be right. If I go on a college campus, I might get some real fucking stupid answers. But if I go to old people, they're probably going to give me better answers. Like, right? So, I don't know. They're both right, and it doesn't even matter who is more right because it doesn't make any difference in the conversation.
Neocon era thought every single Democrat was a fucking communist. What the fuck are you talking about? We literally had a whole Red Scare in this country where every left-leaning person was called a communist. How could you say that? Oh my god. Destiny, the convo was fine. I think stuff went in circles because Mr. Girl didn't trust you, understood him, and the tone of your high-effort responses could... No, you are wrong. The convo was not fine. The convo was a dumpster fire, and it was 100% because of Max's unwillingness to engage with what I was saying. You are wrong. I'm not going to both sides of that conversation. I tried really hard to write down every single point, and I told him I'm going to respond to everything he said. If you want to go point by point, we can, but I need shorter responses. I repeated that like 5 or 10 times. I said, hold on, I need to respond to this. Hold on, I need to respond to this. I would write down 7 things he would say, and he would try to interrupt me at every single point. Every single fucking point. I'd be like, okay, well, here's point 1. No, hold on, let me finish. Okay, so this is my response to point 1. Okay, now here's, hold on, let me finish. Here's my response to point 1. Hold on, let me finish. Like every single time, it was impossible. And then he was accusing me of gaslighting. Bro, anytime somebody says gaslighting, like 10 times in the conversation, are you serious? I'm literally writing down the fucking exact words you were saying. I'm asking you, if you don't like agree with my characterization. And
now we see why. When we're emotional about this shit and we're really feeling it, we're just gonna get repeating it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Then I waste my time and I get frustrated. And that's essentially what's going on here. So hopefully we get Mr. Girl in this conversation sooner rather than later, because Steven's just gonna kind of keep repeating himself unless chat brings up something unique.
then tell me, and we can change it, or we can talk about something different. Like, unfortunately, some of this audience is under the delusion that Destiny's motivation with Nick is some grand calculation of harm reduction versus inroads and reachability to those on the right. He half-heartedly argues this too, but unconvincingly. While he uses legitimate arguments for how to reach people with opposing views, it seems like it's nothing more than a post hoc justification or a positive byproduct of his interactions with Nick. His real motivation is one he's been saying all along, and one he's reinforced ever since he started in politics. He just wants to chat and befriend people he finds interesting and challenging, I would add. Further, while he hasn't said as much lately, he used to frequently emphasize that he's not in politics to advocate any cause, but to explore arguments. Is he going to grow Nick and his platform? Almost certainly. Will he change enough right/grouper mindsets to offset that? Who knows? At the end of the day, you only frustrate yourself. You're expecting Destiny to put general harm reduction concern over his own interests with this. You just have to decide if you can stomach watching him have ice cream with Fuentes every now and then. Things like this makes me think Mr. Girl is correct with his assessment that Destiny is unintentionally or intentionally providing.
That was one thing you read where, like, I really wished he would have responded to it, because I felt like they have an opinion, but a lot of what they're saying to me, like, makes sense. But we get nothing in response to that one. He responds to the ones that are fucking insane, which is unfortunate, but I will fight for Destiny on this one. A lot of those pro Mr. Girl posts are pretty horrible and worthy of bans. All right, I guess we'll see, bro.
Cover for Nick Fuentes, because either he was being dishonest or too heated in the debate to think about this opinion. I was the one that was too heated? He's calling me a gaslighter like 20 times. I'm sorry, I read like all these threads this morning, so I've already read most of it. Like, Jesus Christ. There's a few people towards the bottom. It's fascinating to me how extremely different these conversations come off to people. I saw that whole exchange is unpacking how complicated the issue is for one person, while the other person wants to simplify it into an insult to justify all the baggage that gets loaded onto it. It must be unimaginably frustrating to have someone scream at you about how not seriously you're taking the conversation, only to have people claim you're obfuscating with debate tactics when you take the conversation serious enough to define your terms properly. This wasn't a casual conversation or the subject of a joke. How the word was being applied had massive implications to the way they could continue that conversation, because it meant Mr. Girl could assume the outcomes and policies Nick wanted instead of dealing with the individual outcomes involved themselves. Jesus. If you don't think Max didn't understand Destiny's point of view, which you summarized here in the first 5 minutes.
Also, Mr. Miscellaneous, I think y'all, you included, misunderstand some things. This conversation clarifies. When you say, and if that means having ice creams with bigots, he's never going to, nor has he given the impression that he would change that. Steven doesn't want to have ice cream with a Nazi. I know you said bigots, but I want to be very specific here. Steven would not have done those things with Nick Fuentes if he believed Nick Fuentes was a Nazi. And if you disagree with me, it happens in this conversation. I doubt we'll get to that point in the conversation today, because again, I have a hard out at 12:30 Pacific time. But he brings that up. So, like, I don't know. A lot of people seem to like misunderstand everybody here, which I don't blame them. They're complicated and confusing conversations. But yeah, then he should just say that he's not a Nazi. Bam, conversation over. He can't, because he doesn't know. It's the same way with Mr. Girl and the abuse thing, or Mr. Girl and being a pedophile. Like, Steven doesn't want to say something and then be wrong about it. And he frankly doesn't think that that's something we should be focusing on, which is further giving him a push in the direction he's already going with not putting the label on people unless he's certain of it, right? So, like, that's kind of the hesitancy there. And like that hesitancy is at the core of his belief. So it's not something where I could just advise him to say Nick's not a Nazi or say Nick's a Nazi and then be done with it. And it would be super easy, right? Because he wants to do a lot more legwork to get there. But we get there in this conversation, luckily, which is why I'm picking this one, not the other ones.
Minutes of the previous conversation, not even this one, then you don't understand anything about how Max operates. Abba and Gideon proved Mr. Girl right. They showed how the average person would just hand wave away all the crazy shit Fuentes believes in because there is no way he will ever do what he wants, and there is no way someone would actually be convinced by what he's saying. They would just join the joke and treat it like it was a big meme competition. How do you even walk away with this idea?
I'm just gonna jump to
this.
In
our combo yesterday, you were emotionally manipulative. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Okay.
Well, I think you're wrong. But wait,
So now we are in the conversation proper, which means we get a fun new toggle. Yeah, woo! Now, I usually call this one the line by line or the play by play. In this case, I'll put play by play since it's a little bit more accurate, given we're not going to have a transcript in front of us. And to get you guys to understand how difficult this is going to be and time consuming, you'll see how difficult it is not having a transcript in front of you, because there's going to be a lot of typing of what people are saying in quotes and yada, yada, yada. It's going to be more difficult. That's why I used to collaborate with somebody to get me a color-coded transcript before I even start this, because this endeavor is a lot more difficult when you don't have that. But anywho, we are jumping into our play-by-play. We have a decent understanding of where Steven's coming from on a lot of stuff. We don't have that for Mr. Girl. I didn't track the Reddit thing. We'll just delete that because I'm not going to waste my time on that. And we'll bada bing that out of existence and just focus on our play-by-play here. If you'd like a transcript, there is some magic I could share. I don't care. We're doing this. I will fight you on every point. Good luck. Okay, well, I don't care. Okay, let's just continue.
The topic is me being emotionally manipulative in our conversation yesterday.
I don't know what the topic is. We can wander, but I want to start here.
Okay.
I need you to realize this, okay?
Okay.
When you weaponize psych terms, you throw them around when they're clearly not applicable. I think you're doing that to undermine my arguments, and you're doing it in a very Darvo-esque way, where you are accusing me of gaslighting you because we don't agree on the conversation topic. But by making the accusation that I'm gaslighting you, you're making me wonder if I'm engaged in like a malicious behavior, and not just that we're having a disagreement, which is a form of gaslighting to me. Because I'm telling you, hey, we don't agree here. I think you're saying this. Can I get clarification? I'm writing it down and asking you, which isn't a very gaslighty thing to do. And then you're saying, you're gaslighting me. You're making an intentional bad faith effort to not understand me. And you're doing that when I don't think I'm doing that. You're literally trying to rewrite my own personal history on this to confuse me or to make me lose an argument, which is gaslighting. That's very annoying to me. Okay, go. What do you think?
I want to know if you think gaslighting means intentional.
No, it doesn't have to be
Answering my
intentional.
question on top, Joy.
Okay. Do you think I was accusing you of that level of manipulation and obfuscation?
If you're not making that accusation, then using the word is in and of itself abusive. So we can.
Maybe I should go into my OBS and do a little something here. 1 second. Let me grab a different window here. Oh, Mom. Oh, me, oh, my, oh, me. Let me try and get you guys a little video here. Why does that not work? I think I have to have the window open probably. Here, 1 second. Let's make sure this window is open and behind. Oh, the moment I put it behind, it doesn't work anymore. That's great. Then I'll just put it on the side here and make it big. And then that'll make our job a lot easier. Yeah, that'll make our job a hell of a lot easier here with resizing and stuff. Okay, we'll just do this. We'll do this. And then we'll focus on him in here. Yeah. Whoa. I know you guys like it when Steven does that. Okay, there we go. Let's just, he needs all the help he can get with looking tall. So we'll just do that. Okay, and I'll have him on my second monitor here. Hit OK on that. And then I think at some point, Mr. Girl will come in with his Canon to completely ruin all efforts I put into this, but whatever. Louder? No, I don't. If I make it louder, it'll peak. Thank you for the stim. I needed that. Okay, yeah. Hola, what's up?
When you want. You're either abusive by meaning I'm gaslighting, or you're abusive by using the word when you don't mean it. So it's one or the other.
Okay. I agree with that. I guess my question is, did you interpret... Okay, so when I said you were gaslighting me, I meant you are saying things that you know are not direct responses to what I'm saying, and that you know are unreasonably vague. And given the subject matter being that I think Fuentes is doing the same thing by intentionally muddying the waters, I'm very sensitive to you muddying the... And I feel like this happens with a lot of people I talk to, that they're muddying the waters in...
What I will say is that Mr. Girl feeling like this happens in a lot of his conversations over and over and over again probably means that it's likely to some extent a Mr. Girl problem. And when he's mentioning that he's sensitive to this and whatever, I think this is something Mr. Girl should work on. I feel like I waste my breath when I give any kind of advice to Mr. Girl because he will not take it. So that's why if you're a DGG stan, you might kind of struggle with me a little bit here because any criticism and advice I give is likely going to be pointed at Steven because unfortunately for you Mr. Girl lovers, he doesn't take advice on his conversations. He's not interested in becoming more rhetorically effective. He was incredibly rude in the conversation that we had. So I just, you know, it's tough to warrant or it's tough to justify spending that time and energy on him.
Debates I'm having with them, and I don't know. I think it's like semi-intentional. I'm not trying to say you're doing this like big nefarious like thing. I'm just saying like the effect of what you're saying is
when you say it's intentional, you're saying that I'm being evasive on purpose because I know that I'm incorrect on some given thing. Once you've levied that accusation, you've put me in a max hole that I can't escape from. Because now everything I say is either equivocation, or it's dodginess, or it's bad faith, or it's cowardness. Like I lost you have taken the ability from me to respond substantively to anything you're saying by constantly cutting me off, accusing me of gaslighting. Like I have no arguments now because everything I say is going to be either an equivocation or a dodge. When you're asking me incredibly difficult questions, you're the equivalent of a conservative saying, "What is a woman?" And when I can't give like a one sentence, you're like, "Oh, you're dodging. You're being evasive. You don't have."
I think answer. I actually agree with them on that. Okay. I think that the gender argument. The only way a progressive can participate in the gender argument is to obfuscate. Because there's no answer. The idea of being trans, the way it is formulated, is inherently
You can ask me
illogical.
whatever you want.
What does obfuscate mean to you? Can we define that word?
Blockade, or like derail, block, confuse, intentionally confuse the issue or introduce confusion to the conversation.
Okay, I agree with this.
Okay. So when you're arguing with somebody about gender, my position is there's no such thing as gender, and sex is X, Y, or XX, and that's it. And the only way, the progressive position is that we don't know. I'm not sure. Every progressive, they're going to defend trans ideology by saying, well, it's confusing. Sex is really confusing. There's stuff we don't know. There's stuff I don't know. If we had a machine that could detect, but we don't have that machine. I don't know. Like there might be some, who knows? There could be a possibility. And there's no way to actually argue with that because there is no position. They don't have a position. And that's fine. Like if that's what progressives think, that they just don't know, then okay. But I guess my problem with this is that I need you or really want you to have a position, or to just like admit that you don't.
Is there any way to introduce? What are you, Dan? You're fucking Jesus. Okay, sorry. What? Why would I share your screen if you're playing Hearthstone?
Because you're doing nothing, and it's a good thing while you're doing this. You know, that's smart.
Okay. Is it ever possible that you can introduce nuance?
I left a super chat. Wait, what? Did you? How come I didn't hear it go off? Oh, there was a super chat. Wait, why are my alerts not going off? What? I'm sorry. I don't know why my alerts aren't going off. Wait, why did my sub disappear? The anonymous sub. All right, we're having Streamlabs issues. I'll try to check in on alerts. Mind answering my question on top? You didn't... Why not put your question in the super chat? I don't understand. You're making me feel like... Who knew that it was not the conversation itself, but my chat that would drive me to the Joker point today? Did you see that Mr. Girl said semi-intentional and Destiny responded with intentional? I did, but okay. I'll be honest with you. I'm already at a point where I want to stop streaming. Let me explain why. Because, oh God, I'm already at a point where I want to stop streaming. I'm just destined not to be a streamer. I'm so destined to just be a YouTuber because I just want to put my point across and not deal with like a question every 10 seconds. I want to make a lesson plan, put out my lesson, and then be done with it. I just, and then help people who don't understand in like one-on-one. I like making a lesson plan. I like tutoring, and I don't like this in between of like a collaborative discourse with you guys. I did hear that, but like, if Mr. Girl isn't making a problem out of it, the conversation is continuing. What he's really pointing to, if we're not being, and I'm going to be ableist, if we're not being autistic about it, and like, I get criticism for being autistic. and I feel like this is an autistic moment, when he's saying you're introducing this idea of intentionality. That's what he's saying. And we'll hit this at several points in this conversation where Steven has this problem specifically with Mr. Girl, where like you have a reasonable interpretation you could make of what I'm telling you, and you're choosing to have an unreasonable interpretation without any gain for me and like all the gain for you, or in this case, no gain at all. There is no gain to focusing on that. So yes, I did pick it up, but it's because he's talking about introducing intentionality, which was introduced here. So that's why we're focusing on that. I'm just going to start ignoring the comments that that will derail me. I'm sorry. And I may just focus on what I'm doing and check in with you guys every 30 minutes, because if I have to do this, I am going to get so frustrated because I have way better things to do, that like I would rather go read Dune right now. I don't want to do this if it's done this way. Okay, I just want to watch this and do this, and that's why I say I don't like doing my research on stream. So yeah, I've got a twist to solve the inherent issues. To be honest, your work has informed me the super value of good non-chat videos. Yeah, I'm just gonna. That'll be my future at some point. Sorry, hope you're having a good day. No problem, dude. It's just I don't see your question fucking anywhere in my chat, anywhere. And you're not doing a good job of asking it. Anywho, I'm just going to continue here.
Conversation. Sorry. Admit that something is really complicated. So it's going to be hard to stake out a position in every circumstance. Or is that always obfuscation?
No, that's obviously possible. That's why I'm calling it out.
And now I have to rewind this whole fucking thing because I've lost where we are. Oh, God. I swear to God.
Hard to stay.
Yeah, so when you guys ask me, Booksmarts, why don't you just do your research on stream? You could so easily do it on stream. Like, you guys pissed me off, and then you pissed me off, and then I do a bad job at what I'm trying to do.
Admit that
you need some weed, bro? You need a nice hot cup of shut the fuck up is what you need.
I think it's really complicated, so it's going to be hard to stake out a position in every circumstance. Or is that always obfuscation?
No, that's obviously possible. That's why I'm calling it out. If it, I mean,
How do you determine whether or not I'm being nuanced? Meaning I'm trying to say that it's more complicated than a simple, is X a Nazi? Or is X a woman? Why can I say it's more complicated than that? Or how can I say it's more complicated than that without you just going, oh, you're being a bad faith gaslighter who's obfuscating?
I think my determination on that is going to be based on you contradicting yourself. You saying things that
hold on. We're gonna go one thing at a time. I'm gonna interrupt you when we do. Okay. So on the first thing, you said contradiction. Do you understand that you're begging the question when you say I'm contradicting myself? Because anytime I introduce more nuance, you're saying I'm obfuscating, which means anytime we disagree on this point of if I'm obfuscating or not, I'm by definition contradictory. So when you say, would you say Nazi here? And I say, well, I'd say Nazi here, but I hear you go, oh, that's a contradiction. Well, no, that's nuance. You go, oh, I can tell that it's not nuance. I can tell you're obfuscating because you're contradicting yourself. Well, no, that's part of what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Okay, I feel like you're doing it right now.
Also, now that I'm not pissed, now that I've gotten my breaths, when we're doing play-by-play this way, because the whole point of why I'm here, I'm going to write it at the fucking top. Okay. The whole point of why I'm here is to show you how I research my reviews, okay? And when I'm doing a play-by-play, what I'm looking for are what are the important pivot points of the conversation. The intentional versus semi-intentional versus intentional is not important because it didn't end up being important in the conversation. It wasn't an important pivot point. If Mr. Girl had called it out and then we had that problem, it would get noted. It's not important because it didn't have any impact on the conversation. So that's why. That's a way better answer. So there we go.
Stop. If you accuse me of this...
And now I have fallen behind and I must, again, rewind and listen to it again.
Contradicting myself. Because anytime I introduce more nuance, you're saying I'm obfuscating, which means anytime we disagree on this point of if I'm obfuscating or not, I'm by definition contradictory. So when you say, would you say Nazi here? And I say, well, I'd say Nazi here, but I hear you go, oh, that's a contradiction. Well, no, that's nuance. You go, oh, I can tell that it's not nuance. I can tell you're obfuscating because you're contradicting yourself. Well, no, that's part of what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Okay, I feel like you're doing it right now, but
Stop. if you accuse me of this and you can't substantiate it, I'm hanging up the call. Because if you're just accusing me of lying, then we're done. We can't go any further in the conversation. So I need you to turn your brain on, and I need you to critically engage what I'm saying. I'm going to restate what I just said now, so that it's absolutely. And if you don't understand it, tell me, and I'll rephrase it again. Okay? So
wait, it's not that I don't. I understand.
No. Hold on. I'm rephrasing for the chat then, because you just accused me of doing it again. I'm not going to let those.
I don't want you to rephrase it.
I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway. No. I'm going to.
I might not think of that.
I don't care.
Okay. Mr. Girl wants a lot of control over a conversation that he, for all intents and purposes, has no right to. And I'm happy to see Steven realize, no, I have control over the conversation, and I'm going to exert it here. I don't think that Mr. Girl accused him of lying here. But if he wants to stop everything and not allow those things to go under the radar, and Mr. Girl will say one thing, and then he will introduce 3 more points, and then we'll be in trouble because now we're digging through 3 points. And now if he has a single problem on 1 point, then he'll bring that up and he'll introduce 2 more. And then we have increasing complexity in a conversation, and people just hold on to whatever they want to believe about the people that are talking. So in that regard, good to stop it, because we want to go point by point by point. We had contradiction as an answer into how we can introduce nuance without obfuscating. Let's focus on contradiction. He says, well, you're doing it right now.
This conversation is meaningless at a surface level, but what about the obvious elephant in the room, that Immortal is just jealous? In fact, I feel like Destiny is no longer in an open relationship. He can't have any new boyfriends other than Immortal now.
I guess you're reading it differently than me, but as we've discussed in private,
your idea of category languages.
I don't even know what the fuck that means, nor do I care. So sorry if that's been your question this entire time. You're having a very unhelpful answer, because I don't know what that is, nor do I care. And you'd have to make me care. And saying a word that I don't know is not going to make me care about it. Bad formula there. Yeah, as far as this relationship thing, I assume this is a meme. I have no idea. Steelman Destiny, he needs the handicap, to be honest. Whatever, bro.
I
don't know why I read you guys.
Okay, I have to do it again. Okay, so your issue is you're accusing me of obfuscating in the conversation. And I ask you, how do you know that I'm obfuscating and not just introducing nuance? And you say, well, I can tell that you're obfuscating by when you contradict yourself. And then I say, well, hold on. When I say Nazi could mean this or this, that's me trying to introduce nuance. But you view it as a contradiction because you don't agree with my points. So anytime I try to introduce nuance, you're going to point it out as contradiction, and you're going to turn it into obfuscation, meaning I can never be nuance because it's by your definition. You've already defined it away as obfuscation. That's my issue. Okay, go ahead. You can respond.
Okay, so the reason I said I think you're doing it now is that you are choosing my example for me. If you really wanted to know, if you're just gonna say, okay, point by point, like a list within a list, how are you making the determination that I'm obfuscating? And then I say, well, one example is you contradicting yourself. And then you say, okay, I'm gonna latch onto that point. So within that point, how do you know I'm contradicting myself? And then you said, every time I introduce nuance, you're gonna say I'm contradicting myself. But that's not true. I didn't say that. You're tautologically claiming on my behalf that there is no difference between introducing nuance and obfuscation when you just asked me if there's a difference, and I said
nobody. Oh God. And now we're confused. Now we're so confused. Now we're so far off the mark already. He's not. Oh God, how do I even explain this? This is where I need a transcript, because it's like I have to like look at what he's saying, because it just makes so little sense to me. And there's no transcript for this video. Oh God, yeah. Oh, bruh. Again, to be pedantic, Destiny reframed and said, anytime I introduce, which Mr. Girl never said this. Okay, we'll just, hold on. I'm not going to read you guys anymore. I can't. You're going to have to donate to get my attention, because I'm just going to start ignoring you. And I'll just check in with you at like set points, because you're going to make me stop streaming. That's what you're going to make me do. You're going to make me go offline and go read Dune, because you're very frustrating. Because I like... Okay, because I don't think this is what Mr. Girl is saying, but then I have to know what Mr. Girl is saying to know if that's correct. I feel like I'm being gaslit right now.
Tautologically claiming on my behalf that there is no difference between introducing nuance and obfuscation.
He isn't tautologically claiming that there is no different. He's saying that it could be instantly perceived as contradiction, that you have an option to do that. And should you choose to take that option, then he's going to be stuck no matter what. Your response to this could be an example of where nuance is okay and it isn't perceived as a contradiction. The way that a normal person, a good debater, would respond to this, given the problem that Mr. Girl sees, is to give an example of a time where you can introduce nuance and Mr. Girl did not immediately perceive it as contradiction, and then you build the narrative that that's not true, it doesn't happen all the time, if that's what you're worried. But this is a poor reading of like what Steven is saying as well. Do we really in our heart of hearts think that when Steven is saying this, he means that like all of the time, anytime nuance is brought up, Mr. Girl always perceives it as contradiction? That's not the case. I don't think that's what he means. And that's why your comment frustrates me. And it's why
comment to trigger you.
And that's why this whole thing frustrates me, is because we have like the fucking dumbest interpretations of what each other is saying in this conversation, and it just goes on like that. And rather than make that clear, he starts off his entire point by saying, "So I think that you're doing this like right now. I think this is an example of what I'm talking about, that you tautologically create this setup where no matter what, I like, bro, why are we opening it up like this? Like, it's like everything stylistically with Mr. Girl makes having a conversation with him incredibly difficult.
Accusing Destiny of doing, he did the exact same thing when he was talking to Richard Spencer about Star Wars or something, flirting with him and bonding over James. Bond for half an hour. What's the difference from eating waffles?
I like that Trainwreck's had a bit of a hiccup there. And bonding over James Bond for half an hour. What's the difference from eating waffles? I don't know. And that's outside the scope of this conversation, so I can't even comment on it. I don't even watch Mr. Girl. You think I'm going to watch a conversation with Mr. Girl and Richard Spencer? I'm a Nick Fuentes fan, but that doesn't make me an alt-righter, okay? So I just have no idea. I have no idea. I know, Giga Chad. Okay, whatever.
When you just asked me if there's a difference, and I said yes. So
yeah, but you gave me
not every time you introduce nuance is to obfuscate. But then you just said on my behalf. Every time I introduce nuance, you say I'm obfuscating, but that's not true.
It's weird for you.
Hold on. Listen to that one more time. We'll check this. If it's incorrect, I'm gonna roast him.
I introduce nuance, okay, but then you just said on my behalf. Every time I introduce nuance, you say I'm obfuscating, but that's not.
Every time you introduce nuance, you say I call it out as obfuscating. I don't think that's what was said. And because we don't have a fucking transcript, we're just going to have to scrub through the whole thing.
I'm obfuscating.
Find a way as obfuscation. Points. So anytime and then I say, well, hold on. When I say Nazi could mean this or this, that's me trying to introduce nuance. But you view it as a contradiction because you don't agree with my points. So anytime I try to introduce nuance, you're going to point it out as contradiction and you're going to turn it into obfuscation, meaning I can never be nuance because it's by your definition.
Okay.
Contradiction.
That's why it's more complicated, because the fucking line before it. Oh, I hate analyzing these. There's conversation as a tool, and then there's conversation as fucking poetry amongst English literature students. And this is fucking the autistic fucking conversation among English literature students. It's the fucking line before this that makes that not the case.
Has Marvel in the convo ever acknowledged that by streaming with Destiny could also pull a lot of Nax fans to the left?
He could. I think they talk about it later.
Because you don't agree with my points. So anytime I try to introduce
so he already sets it up as like, if you disagree with the points, you're already in the mind, the headspace to make the call out as a contradiction. That's what he's saying. He's not saying in every single instance all the time of the introduction of nuance. He's saying that the introduction of nuance, when you already disagree with the point and you're already leaning towards the contradiction thing, means you'll just use the contradiction thing, shut this whole thing down, bring it up to the obfuscation claim, and then we'll build it up to something bigger like gaslighting, right? So, holy shit. It's all about the topology of the interaction, not the interaction itself. I don't even know what the fuck that means. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Myself. And then you said, every time I introduce nuance, you're going to say I'm contradicting myself. But that's not true. I didn't say that. You're tautologically claiming on my behalf that there is no difference between introducing nuance and obfuscation when you just asked me if there's a difference, and I said yes. So
yeah, but
okay, now I have to fix my OBS as well. Wonderful. I love this cascading changing of things. Oh, that's a mistake. That's a mistake as well. Can you please do what I'm asking you to do? Thank you. Of course. Why does it move everything? I'm not even selected on that. There we go. We'll just minimize that and put it way down here, and then we'll be good. Okay.
You gave me
not every time you introduce nuance is to obfuscate, but then you just said on my.
I'm not reading you anymore, Slivola. You're on a timeout. If I had a 30-minute timeout, I would put you on it because I just don't want to read what you're saying for the next 30 minutes, and I can't trust myself because I have no self-control. If I don't at you, just assume I'm talking to someone else. I would rather you just not talk for 30 minutes. Can you self-enforce that?
On my behalf, every time I introduce nuance, you say I'm obfuscating, but that's not true.
It's weird for you to say contradiction is evidence of obfuscation when we're literally arguing about whether or not I'm contradicting myself. That's the subject of the debate. I don't think that defining a word in two different contexts in different ways is contradiction, but you do. But that's fine that we disagree on that. But you can say our disagreement, there's evidence that you're wrong. Well, hold on, that's literally what we're arguing about.
It started out as you asking me, my thought process for what makes me say something like, I think you're obfuscating.
Okay.
You said, how do you determine that versus introducing nuance? You asked me, is there a difference? I said, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm going through my thought process, but now you're turning my thought process not just into a one bullet point of it, not just into a claim I'm making generally, which I'm not, into a claim I'm making about a specific.
You're Mr. Girling me, Slivola. I'm literally telling you not to read my shit, and you need to be a big boy, put on your big boy pants. What am I telling you? I'm telling you to shut the fuck up, to not type anything, right? I know what you're saying. I read it out loud. You think I'm a fucking... I fucking read it. I said all the words. And I know I wrote essays for a living. I've been a streamer for a long time. But I said all those words and they didn't make any sense to me. No, bruh. I read your fucking message. And my response that you're not listening to is to shut the fuck up. Is to just be quiet, right? I know what you said. Then my response is to be quiet. Yeah, Vels, you're just gonna have to keep timing him out, okay? I hate to do this to Slivola because I do like Slivola, but you're going to drive me up a fucking wall right now with this. I can't handle you.
Specific point of your choosing now. But
you can choose your own example if you want. I just want to go. I just want to get it clear.
You just tried to choose it for me.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Max. You can choose it.
I don't want an apology. I'm just pointing out that, I feel
I'm giving a hypothetical example to try to test your thing. But if you don't like my example, you can say Destiny. This is disanalogous for this reason. Or Steven, this is disanalogous for this reason. Let me use this example instead. You could just give that example instead of saying you're being bad faith by giving an example. So you can provide your own example if you'd like. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think that it is. Do you want me to give you an example of you contradicting yourself and why I think it was obfuscation?
Sure. Well, if you can't think of a particular one, give an example of it. You don't have to.
Well, I think it is self-contradictory to claim that you have no control over the definition of the word Nazi in your base or in your community, and then to also claim that the reason you don't exert control over it is because you don't care, and then also give a bunch of examples of times where you did exert control over the word Nazi in your community. Those to me, all those stances all contradict them.
Okay. Tell me if this series of statements implies a contradiction. Okay.
Okay.
So number one, I can't control people's engagement with media outside of my community. Do you agree with that?
I don't think you can totally control it, but I think you have a lot of sway over how your community views the media. For example, like with Kyle Rittenhouse. I think that you could basically control how people who follow you interpret other people talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, if they're big fans of yours.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this again. I can't control my community's engagement with political content outside of mine. I might be able to say, like, you could maybe look at it this way or that way, but they can watch stuff other than me, right? And they can take opinions outside of my. I can't not their media diet 100%.
No, but you can control what they see when they see the same thing.
I don't know what
tell
that
them
means.
what
If somebody turns my stream off and they go watch Hassan or Vosh, I've lost control of that viewer for a bit.
And then we hit another issue, which we hit a lot in these conversations between the two of them, where they're talking at different levels, and I don't know how it's happening. I don't know how we're this far off. Like, Mr. Grove makes complete sense here. When you say, I can't control the engagement in media outside of this community, that's not true. You do, because you change how they view that thing. And it's kind of part of the purpose of what you're doing, right? And that's what he's pointing out is like, well, no, you can influence how they interpret events that happen outside of your community. But then Steven changes what he's saying from, I can't control their engagement in media outside this community, to be more specific, which is good, but really different than the way that I think the average person would read it, which is he then turns it into like, I can't like have godlike control, 100% control, which will kind of flesh out over the next few lines here of how somebody is engaging in and what they're engaging in outside of this community, which like, yeah, but nobody expects that. So why? Like, nobody thinks, like, it's just such a silly way of interpreting stuff. I'm regretting this. I'm already regretting this. I'm regretting this hardcore. I want to back out of this. I want to back out of this. Destiny's falling back on, but I don't have 100% control as a defect, as a deflect. Yeah. Yep. And if I remember correctly, but who knows, because I didn't take notes, I do believe that he's going to get mad at Max for thinking the 100% thing later when he makes the 100% thing clear here, which I didn't even realize until I'm going back line by line through this, which is why the line by line is helpful, because I completely didn't even interpret this as that happening until I went back and rewatched it. So if you're a Mr. Girl fan, here's some points for your boy.
No, you can totally control the narrative about other streamers and figures. If the person is like a huge fan of yours, you can absolutely color their view of anything you want.
Can't other people color their view of me? Couldn't Vosh or Hassan color one of my viewers' views of me?
Not the same way that you... No, when somebody is a fan or a super fan of yours, like, it doesn't matter what anybody else says about you.
Okay, so the people in my subreddit that are on your side, of which there were many threads this morning, are those... I lost all of those people as fans. They're not my fans anymore?
No, they are your fans. This is a temporary... like them viewing you as evasive or whatever. They're still fans of yours.
Okay, so then in this sense, another content creator, another figure has influenced their view of something that's in a way outside of my...
I'm sorry, Slibla, I blocked you on YouTube. Congratulations. Congratulations. Omedetou. Omedetou gozaimasu. Omedetou.
Control.
Okay. You just said like an hour ago on stream, you said you cannot tell how people actually felt about the argument with me anymore because you went over it on stream. You said once I go over something on stream, that colors my audience's perception of it so much that I no longer can even ask them what they think.
Okay, this is not a contradiction to anything that I'm saying right now. So I'm gonna ask the first question. We can deal with that subject later if you want. I'm gonna ask again. Okay. I can't believe that you're not willing to give this point. I do not control 100% of my viewers' media digest. I can't do that. They watch other stuff besides me sometimes.
Yes, you do not 100% control it.
Okay.
Which is not what he hit initially.
I can't control how words are used in other communities. Do you agree with that?
I think you can influence how words are used in some other communities, but you don't have total control over it. I agree with that.
Okay. I don't have control how words are used in other communities. If I don't control how Vosh or Hassan uses words.
That's true.
Okay. I can speak up when I think a word is used incorrectly in my community. When somebody's watching me, right? I can do that.
Yes.
Okay. And then the fourth claim, probably the most contentious one, maybe the one that we'll fight over the most, is I can't remove all context or all understanding that people have of a word outside of my community.
You cannot remove all context. Of course not.
So, for instance, I very much feel like pedophile means attraction to a prepubescent person. I'm not choosing this for you, but this is one that okay.
Hey.
I think that pedophile means attraction to a prepubescent person. Period. Full stop. That's what pedophile means to me. But there's probably a lot of people in my community that would still say like, oh, a 30-year-old attracted to a 16-year-old is a 16-year-old is a pedophile. There's still probably a lot of people that would say that, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
I disagree, Johannes. So Johannes says, Mr. Girl also says you can totally control and you can absolutely color their view of anything you want. Seems like he's also playing into the Destiny can have total or almost total control. I feel like we're listening to different things. When he says you can totally control, he means totally as in like radical, bruh, fucking totally. Did you catch those fucking waves out there, bro? That was totally fucking radical. Oh, are you saying that every single moment in totality of the waves that you had out there was radical? Because as somebody who's dabbled in surfing myself, there are big sets and there are little sets. Are you telling me that you totally had a radical time on the small wave sets? You're playing into a trope about how wonderful surfing is that is just completely incorrect. Like, no, that's not how he means totally. He doesn't mean totally that way. He says you can totally control that. Like, you can totally have some control over this, which is why he repeats influence over it over and over again. That's why he says color over and over again. We can use context clues to determine what does he mean by totally. So setting aside that statement, let's look at the other one. You can absolutely color their view of anything you want. He doesn't mean that it is in like, I want absolute control over the Reich. That's not the absolute he's talking about, right? He doesn't mean absolute in like an absolute sense. He means absolutely as in like, yeah, that's absolutely something that you could do. I absolutely think that Margaret is a wonderful cook, right? He doesn't, we're looking at a really weird way these words are working. We're choosing to use that one, and that's a very silly way of doing it, right? It's a very silly way of doing it. Right? So, no, you're reading that way weirdly. Maybe I'm the weird one here, but that's not how I read that. So, no, not on either of those. And if you read it the other way, all of a sudden it makes sense what Max is saying. No, you don't have 100% control. That's why he's agreeing to all those. That's why he probably doesn't mean totally and absolutely the way that you do. Well, how he means those is probably you definitely have some kind of control over this. You definitely have the ability to color people's views. And that's why we have this point here. That's why it's being worded this way. Does it make sense to you, Johannes? That makes sense to you, Johannes. And yes, maybe Clueless is right. Maybe this is an ESL thing. But yeah, we don't mean it that way. And maybe this will be a very, very funny example of now you will always know what people mean in English when they say totally or when they say absolutely. And that is not meant as a Fuhrer would say it, is meant as a surfer would say it. So just try to think of it like a surfer. That's what I would say. So I would say.
I'm going to run through these one more time. I can't control my community's engagement with political content outside of my community. Maybe I can influence the way they view it when they come back into my community. I go over it, but I can't control like if they go watch Vosh or Hassan or something. I have no control of them in that time period. They're off watching something else, right? Okay. I can't control how words are used in those other communities. So Vosh uses fascist or whatever. I have no control over that. Yeah.
I think you can.
Was that my TTS? I cannot escape. 1K for a hard to listen to stream worth it. Yes, I guess, but I have a hard out. I have a hard out. I'm going to be gone in at the time that I said. If you want to strap me in here and make me read all of you guys for 1,000, sure, we'll get through even less of this conversation. But if that's what you want, if all you want is to torture me in here, you don't want to learn about how I do this, fine, I'll allow it. I do this as a job still. The moment I don't do it as a job, I won't care anymore. But I am still doing it as a job. I have an interview, another meeting about the job I'm trying to get. And that's why I have to leave this early. But while I'm in the transition period, sure. But when I hit the transition period, no. There we go. Yes, I am the weird one. Glad we agreed there. All right, let us continue.
Influence it indirectly, but no, you don't have direct total control over it.
I can speak up in my community when I think a word is used incorrectly. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I can't, and then 4 is I can't totally redefine a word in my community. I can push for how I want something to be, but I can't totally like rewrite everybody's brains in my community. They're still going to have a whole bunch of external context for what words means, and I can't control that 100%. I can push them in a certain direction.
Yeah, any of these would be an absurd claim to make.
Okay.
That you have total control over any of these things. Also, the last point of
and there we go. He thinks it's ridiculous, the total control thing. So to go back to Johannes, I know we're beating you like you're a dead horse, but again, let's take a moment for our fallen comrade Solivula to understand it is the topography of the conversation. Okay. In God's name, may he rest, or whatever.
contradiction was that you don't care.
Okay. Given all 4 of these premises, I'm going to reread your statement that you say is full of contradictions. So you're saying that I'm making the self-contradictory claim that I have no control over the definition of the word Nazi in your community. So I think this is dealt with. In a way, in premise 2 and 3, that in my community, people are bringing with them preconceived notions of Nazi into my community, and I don't have control of that fully, and I can't rewrite that fully. So when I say, if we want to be charitable,
SEK is Swedish crowns, and yes, I understand that. But Daniel Brockman, DVB, it's the currency, idiot. Yeah, it is the currency. The currency is different. It's 1,000 crowns. It's not $1,000. I mean, still a lot. I think 1,000 crowns altogether comes out to like $500 or something. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Not gonna lie. Not my point. But yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. Oh boy.
I'm not going to say I don't have no control over the definition, but I can't rewrite that completely.
Well, which is it? Because I didn't make the claim that you can rewrite it completely.
Okay,
I think you have a large degree of control over how the word Nazi is used in your community.
Okay. I need you to apply the basest level of charitability to what I'm saying. Okay, because you are treating me like an unmitigated retard. Do you think that I would say that I have absolutely no control over what anybody in my community says? Do you think I would ever make a statement like that?
No, but you came kind of close last night. I think you said, I can't control what my community says, how my community defines this word. And then when I pressed you on it, you said, well, I don't care.
And now I have a rhetorical suggestion for Stephen. Maybe we say, though I have influence, I don't have complete control. Maybe we just make a change to the way we say things in the future, because people will misinterpret it this way. And it's very, very easy to, because if you're saying, I can't control the engagement of people outside my community, and Mr. Grill feels the need to clarify that over and over and over again, and his people are misunderstanding it over and over and over again, and people perceive it as Weasley because it does sound fucking Weasley if you interpret it that way, that you're saying that you have no control over the way that people engage, and you never ever make that clear. Probably, even if it's autistic, even if it's treating you like a retard, maybe we need to word it a little bit better so that people don't think you're an unmitigated retard. Maybe. Do you like being an unmitigated retard? Is it a fun way of being interpreted? No? Me neither. So we probably should change the language a little bit, at least when dealing with Mr. Girl. Because another problem that he brings up that happens over and over and over again in this conversation and others is that he says something one way, and then he has to be way more nuanced about it and fix the way that he's talking about it to be way more accurate of what he's trying to convey. And that happens specifically in his conversations with Mr. Girl. So perhaps in your strategy for dealing with Mr. Girl, in much the same way that you have to rewrite every fucking thing the guy says in order to defend him or in order to understand him, perhaps you also need to reword the things that you say so that they can't be misinterpreted in this fashion, which you make it very easy to do, to be fair. Okay? Okay? Maybe that's advice here.
Unmitigated regard needs to be a meme.
Yeah, I'll have it as my my sub alert. Max doesn't care about influence. Max is speaking to the... I don't care. I didn't get paid enough to read all these chats. I don't
care to define it in a certain way.
Nor do I.
Said, well, what about all these other statements you're making where you are defining it in a certain way?
Okay, we're going to dive into these statements because they're proving everything I've said. Okay. When I say this sentence, I can't control how my community defines a word. What do you mean by that? Because I can read this in the context of what I know about me, and what you should know about me, and what everybody knows about me. I think there's a very obvious way to read that statement. You tell me what you think that statement means. So I say, I can't control how my community defines a word.
Why does answering that I am Mexican get a winky face? Hi, Papi.
I think my problem with it is that there are... I did not interpret you as meaning 100% control. And I don't think you interpreted me as meaning 100% control. I don't think either of us thought that the other person meant that. And yet, in your counterexample here, you're asking me, do I have 100% control? Which I don't think is relevant because I don't think that's what either of us meant. So I assume, when I say you have control over how people use this word, I assumed you know that I mean you have a large degree of control. That you're not going to see a DGGer saying pedophile the same way Avashvan does because of you, because you have changed how they think of that word.
Potentially. Okay, but so focusing on this, I can't...
Oh, God. And honestly, now that I've been Mr. Girl pilled, and I went back in time as a baby, and I threw myself down a flight of stairs, like 3 different times, and made sure that I had the good geometric trajectory to land on my head. Now that I've done that, I can kind of see how Destiny is interpreted as being Weasley because of things like this. And so I'm beginning to see the Weasley thing. And I think that we could avoid a lot of the Weasley stuff by following that advice about being way more specific in the language. So I'm gonna now we get to go up here and we get to add another. Oh yeah, we get to add another toggle that I will call advice. My advice for Steven, for Destiny, right, our boy, is
welcome to the MR Girl cult. Brother, you should make these donuts more expensive.
That's the best way that I can word it because it came from the voice in my head. And I love the voice in my head, especially as a Mr. Girl viewer. Be way more specific and intentional in your language, or else you will have to look Weasley by explaining yourself further and adding nuance in a way that contradicts an audience member's initial interpretation of what you had said so radically that they take it as a completely contradictory statement to the initial one. I didn't put a single comment in there, and I don't care. Big donos coming through.
This entire conversation is about Margrove forcing Destiny to define words, but what about him defining what, for example, an interview is as opposed to eating waffles? This seems extremely nebulous to me.
I guess we never, I don't hear us talking about interviews and waffles so far, but maybe later, Daniel. I don't know. That advice you just gave Destiny is the same advice Mr. Grill is trying to give Destiny, but around the usage of Nazi. I suppose we'll see, won't we? Boop. I suppose we'll see.
Control.
So when I say I can't control how my community defines a word, what do you think I'm probably saying there?
He already answered this, so why we asked that as a question when he said large amount of control, I don't know, but it might be down to not listening or something, or maybe trying to get it on the record. In any case, let's see if Mr. Grill answers the same exact way that he already explained himself.
Just talk about this statement. I can't control how my community defines a word. What do you think I mean when I say this?
I think this is my problem, I guess. It sounds like, I guess my immediate thought is compared to what? So if you're saying I don't have total control, that's obvious, but then it doesn't mean anything. If you're saying I only have some control, then I'm obviously imploring you to use whatever control you do have to this effect.
Okay, now, this is an argument.
No control, that's
this
obviously
is good.
not true.
That's fine. That statement is an argument that we can actually work with and build off of, okay?
Okay.
Accusing me of saying I have no control makes me look like an idiot. And then it feels like you're implying that I can have a high degree of control, and I think that makes you look like an idiot. But this statement that, like,
I don't think
you
so.
can exert some control, even though a lot of it is outside of your control, now we have this is something that we can discuss, okay?
But this is why I'm accusing you of obfuscating.
I am being incredibly clear here. If anybody's obfuscated thus far, you're the one giving the evasive answers. But after all of this talking, now we've gotten to a point that I think is actually an interesting discussion, which is there are people that use words in ways that I disagree with outside of my community. And you agreed that I can't control how words are used in other communities. And you agreed that I can speak up when a word is used incorrectly in my community. But you also agree that I can't totally redefine a word in my community. So then the question
And in none of that do we say influence, which I am going to highlight in green. Because I think we need to be saying this, and we're not saying this because we're just going to repeat what we believe and not any of the stuff that Mr. Grill added to help him digest this. And the helping Mr. Grill digest it is probably what we need to focus on. So it was not said at any point in there. He's just repeating can't control over and over and over and over and over, even though it's causing problems. And I guess he doesn't see that. And, yeah. Kind of dumb. Okay.
becomes, what is the struggle that you're willing to take, and is the payoff worth it? Because we both agree that I can exert some influence. I agree with that, and you agree with that. We both also agree that a lot of it is out of my control, because I can't control other communities, and I can't control how words are defined. I can't totally redefine them in my community, right? So the question is, how much do you want to struggle against that? And that is an interesting conversation. Go ahead.
The reason I'm saying you're obfuscating is that I don't believe that you possibly could have thought I meant anything else last night. You don't think I meant that you have to. Total control, and you don't think that I thought you meant you have zero control.
The problem is that when I would bring up an example, and when I would say, these words are used so far, they have so many different meanings now.
Clueless. I'm beginning to like you. I'm beginning to, my Kokoro is doki dokiing for you, because I think this is the second reasonable thing that I've read in a sea of unreasonable or off the path things. I can't control, and I have no control, feel like unnecessarily absolute terms to get his point across. You know what? I love that so fucking much. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a quote here. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say, I can't control, and I have no control. Feel like unnecessary, I don't know how to spell, necessarily absolute terms to get his point across. I 100% agree with you. I do. And I'm going to attribute this to you, Mr. Clueless. Or Miss Clueless. Honestly, could be either way. It's just when I hear something intelligent, I assume a man had said it. Obviously a joke. Obviously a joke. I have very many wonderfully brilliant women in my community. Okay. I should be a Booksmarts YouTube mod. I don't know if that's a smart idea.
I don't want to struggle against all of those other external meanings. I don't want to sit here and have to redefine or try to define Nazi, rapist, homophobe, whatever in my own stream. You would always say, well, are you saying you have no control over the words? Are you saying that your community is outside of your control? You can't guide them at all?
I knew you weren't saying that.
Okay, well, that's what it felt like to me as an emotional retard creature. That was what I was hearing over and over and over and over again.
I don't think you're
correct. You didn't say I was right. You said worse. You assumed that I was being malicious. So it's even worse than being dumb. You assumed that I was being intentionally bad faith by saying gaslighting and evasiveness.
I'm going to settle on semi-intentional.
Okay.
But my sense is now that if you really wanted us to have a shared understanding of what I mean when I say you have control over how your community uses the word Nazi or how they think of the word Nazi, I think that you would offer back a good faith interpretation of that statement. You would say, okay, so you're saying I generally have a lot of influence over how people use the word Nazi in my community. Got it. And I would say, sure. Like, I'd be pretty amenable to that. Like, do you really think I'm going to counter that with saying, no, Stephen. I'm saying you have total 100% control over how
I do think you would try to nail me down that, because the issue that I'm having, and this is why I was writing down and trying.
Insane.
You're saying that, but I think it's insane of you. You don't know. I need you to admit this. You don't know if Nick is a Nazi inside of his mind. You can't know that. It's that information is by definition inaccessible to you. You don't know that, right? But when you're trying to nail down on me, like, do you think he would do this? Do you think he's nice? It's like, fuck, man, I don't know. Mate, what about in his ideal world? I don't know what his ideal world would. Maybe you're accusing me of being weaselly every time I refuse to stake out a hard position here. So when you say, like, can you redefine a word? Can you do this? Like, I don't know if you're asking for a one.
Not why.
I don't. Hold on. I'm just saying that from my perspective, you're trying to nail me down on these ultra rigid positions where it's like, Jesus, I don't even fucking know. Like, if he was in power, if he could get the power, what he would do. I'm not sure 100%. So when I'm not taking these 100% positions, it feels like you're attacking me for it. So I don't know what you mean when you're asking me to, like, redefine words or fight for words, or you're giving me examples of how I can, like, change some words, whatever. That's what I'm trying to figure out by writing your responses down and then asking you questions to test it.
Okay. I disagree with your statement that I'm calling you weaselly for not taking a firm stance. That's not why I don't even call you weaselly, but that's not why I'm accusing you of obfuscating.
True. You called me cowardly, spineless, and says I wasn't equipped for the conversation and that I was gaslighting. I think those are the words you used, but not weaselly. Go ahead.
I think I called all streamers cowardly and spineless.
It was in the context of that conversation related to these topics, so it was very specifically aimed at me. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hey, it's Mr. I'm banned, so now I have to pay money to get my point across.
Okay, I'm piecing out for a bit. Your coverage has been great so far, and keep it up. You owe me my Mr. Girl translation abilities.
Well, I'm honored. As a rabid, banned Mr. Girl fan, to hear from you that I'm doing a fine job of interpreting what he is saying. Honestly, I can't think of a better testimonial. The only other testimonial I could think of is a banned, rabid Mr. Girl fan on the Destiny Reddit. That is the only step above you that I could think of for having said that. Okay, so you're very high up there, and I appreciate that. So my biggest issue with D, let me guess that you're straight. In this debate, bad read, is he is arguing the meta, because that's how Mr. Girl argues. But this time around, he's now, and no one seems to get it. I don't know what he's now means, but that sounded very, very insightful up until that moment. Man, why do this if you seem to hate it so much? Boring stream, bye! Why would you type? Why would you just go watch something else, dumb fuck? I don't know. I never type in a comment or in a chat that I think something is boring. And you know what? My dad always told me one thing. The only people who get bored are people who have boring personalities. They're boring people. So if you were the epitome of bored, you were so fucking bored that you had to leave a message about it. Well, it tells me more about you than it does about my content, friend. That is for sure.
Well, are you saying you're mad or hurt that I used those terms, or are you asking me to defend my stance?
No, I'm not mad or hurt. I'm frustrated because once these words are brought out, the argument ends. We can't have a back and forth anymore because now you're telling me what I think and you're not listening to what I'm saying because you've already decided, oh, he's lying about this. He's being bad faith.
But the implication of that is that you never obfuscate, but maybe you do.
The problem is we're having an incredibly complicated conversation about incredibly broad political labels that I believe 90% of people could not accurately identify today. And you're saying, oh, you're not giving a rigid definition of this, you're obfuscating. I'm not obfuscating. I'm just acknowledging the hardcore political realities that we live in today.
That's not why I'm saying you're obfuscating.
Why are you saying I'm obfuscating? Okay, I'm sorry, hold on. I'm writing this down, word for word.
Okay.
Why am I obfuscating?
I think you are straw manning me with a completely untenable position by saying that if I say you have control over how your community defines this word, I must be saying you have 100% control over how your community uses the word.
Okay.
I also
so this is what it, well, hold on, okay? So you think I'm straw manning you with an untenable position by saying that if you're claiming that I have control over how my community defines the word, you must be saying that I have 100% control over community defines the word. So in my mind, I feel like we're fighting about the interesting conversation, which is a struggle of how much effort should I put into this versus not. So I feel like I'm giving an example where I'm saying,
and like, here is the point where like Mr. Girl goes wrong on the exact same point, right? Like, it was stupid to assume that Mr. Girl means 100% and is fighting to nail him on that whatever. It is also silly to think, from Mr. Girl's point of view, Steven means 100%. Like, I don't know. Both of them are assuming the worst of each other and are far off the mark from what the other person actually believes. And so they're fighting with ghosts. They're fighting with the worst interpretation possible of what the other person means. And then they're going all out. And the way that Mr. Girl fights means that when he feels like it's going crazy, he pulls out a gun, and Steven is a cucklord with a Victorinox fucking pocket knife. And so what's frustrating is he's not going to say gaslighting and all this other shit, but Mr. Girl will. So when both of them assume this and Mr. Girl uses his tools, he is probably going to impact the audience in a better way. And therefore, once they both assume this, Steven's going to be fucked. And now Steven isn't going to let that happen anymore. He's made a no gun rule and he'll end the conversation, which is good. Not hitting at the heart of the issue, which is that both of them assumed it was gunfight at some point when it's not. And that's on both of them, unfortunately. 50 sec.
My biggest problem with D is that it almost doesn't even work. It's not even fun or pleasurable if you use a condom which causes spread monkey diseases.
well, there's a lot of external ways that these words are defined as.
How am I supposed to respond to that? How am I supposed to respond?
Well, they're out of my control. And then your response is, no, you can control it in your community. When you say that as a response, so there's two responses. You can either say that, no, you can control it in your community. That makes it sound like a binary position. But if you were to respond to me instead and you were to say, well, yeah, there is a lot of external content there that you can't deal with, but like, I think it's worth it for you to fight against that in your community, even if it's not a...
You know what? I'm beginning to think maybe control is a bad thing. Maybe for both people, we need to not say control. We need to say influence. Because control, it's so easy to assume that control means it absolute control. So we should probably just use influence. I think that is sound advice for all of us involved. Anywho, let's continue here.
100% thing to try to like maintain some like level of, and you're gonna have to fight for it all the time, of this word's definition of me. Like a response like that would be like, okay, well, let's talk about how much we should fight for the definition. But that's not what it felt like when I was pushing back for these are why I don't fight 100% on these things. It sounds like you were always giving me a counter. Like, oh, so you're saying this, or oh, well, you don't think that. Well, no, that made it felt like it was binary from you. That's the feeling.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we
I'm
both
not
know that
saying-
I would never say I have no control and I have total control. Both of those things are false. We both know that both of us, I would open
Yeah,
this
but
conversation, think both of those statements are false, right?
It feels like a derailment when you even introduce either of those concepts, because neither you're not going to say you have zero control, and I'm not going to say you have total control. So, and this is the same thing with whether Nick is a Nazi. It's the same. I feel like it's the same obfuscation. What I'm asking you is, what is your personal assessment? Is he a Nazi? Is he not a Nazi? Or do you not know? But when I press you on that at different times, I get different answers. That feels like the obfuscation. If you just said, I don't know, and I don't care, then there's not, then like, no, I'm not going to say you're obfuscating then. I'm not trying to reach into your mind and say that like you're contradicting your inner thoughts. I'm saying the things you are saying are contradicting other things you're saying. And then you're positioning me as, being unhappy that you don't know the answer to my question or that you won't take a firm stance. My problem is that you are taking multiple contradictory yet also kind of firm stances and introducing confusion. I think the confusion serves to give you a defense of how you're handling Fuentes, but it also serves as a defense of him. And I think that by saying that I'm unhappy that you don't have a firm, that you can't read his mind, like that's such a crazy straw man. No, I'm not saying you should read his mind or that reading minds is possible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying based on all the information you have about him, I think it's kind of important for you to make an assessment of whether or not he's like a genocidal crazy person who wants to kill people if he comes to power, and or to whatever extent you think that is true. I do think you need to assess that.
Okay, here's what's happening, okay?
Okay, all right.
You're saying, is he a Nazi? And I'm saying, I'm not sure. And you're pointing out, well, you said he was a Nazi here. You said he was a Nazi here. Here you joke that he's a Nazi. Here you allude to him being a Nazi. Here you say he's not a Nazi, and right now you won't call him a Nazi. And you're saying that I'm obfuscating by not answering the question. Is that a fair summary of what you're saying?
Sure.
Yes, but I just want to again be clear that my problem is that all those statements contradict each other about your
Yes.
current
I
answer or
understand.
your current
Yes.
thinking.
Sure. And my
Yes.
assertion is none of those statements are contradictory. But the problem is we're fighting over the statement, is he a Nazi? And you think that the question you're asking me is Nick Fuentes a Nazi? That's not the question that I'm dealing with. The question I'm dealing with is, what is a...
This sounds like some Jordan Peterson shit. Hold on. I need to reset. Because I can be mean to Mr. Girl all I want, and I'll be okay. But if I'm mean to Steven, well, if you're mean to Steven, then you're in lots of trouble, Booksmart. So hold on a minute. Hold on a minute, bro. Hold on a minute. It's kind of like kicking a cat versus kicking a lion. Sure, they're both like kind of cats, but one of them will eat me. Okay, hold on. Let's reset. Let's all take a breather. Maybe it'll seem like less of a stupid statement after I take my breaths. Ooh. Okay, let's listen to that one more time. Let's listen to that one more time. And if you're in the audience, you understand what I mean by that sounds like a Jordan Peterson statement, then cool on you. You're belonging to a special club of people, very small.
Thinking.
Sure. And my assertion is none of those statements are contradictory. But the problem is we're fighting over the statement, is he a Nazi? And you think that the question you're asking me is Nick Fuentes a Nazi? That's not the question that I'm dealing with. The question I'm dealing with is, what is a Nazi? That's the question. Insofar as
So it's almost like an admission that he's behind the curve, right? Because the way that this would look, and I'm just going to enter a few times here and do this. So if I ask you, is X a Nazi? There's a few different pieces in here. There's this piece and there's this piece. And I have to know both. So he knows XXX, kind of. Like, he's like swapping this around. I don't actually know what a Nazi is. And although he says he stopped there, he'll get to another point where he's like, I don't even know what so-and-so believes. So therefore, I'm not equipped to ever answer this question because I'm never going to know. I'm never going to know if he's actually a Nazi because I don't know his internal clock or whatever. I don't know what he believes. I don't know what he's thinking. And I don't know what we mean by Nazi. So Steven is like several steps behind the curve. Now, that's frustrating to Mr. Girl because Steven uses Nazi. And he uses it jokingly to refer to him. And he uses it here and there and there. I think the problem is Steven will say shit like we all do off the cuff in jokes and however else. But now we're in a serious conversation where he's being seriously confronted with questions about this topic. And what's unfortunate for him is he's on the record saying shit in the past that throws this whole question into doubt. If you didn't know what Nazi is, and you didn't know how you could relate that to so-and-so in their positions, why the fuck did you do it as a joke? Why the fuck did you do it semi-seriously here, right? We have a bunch more questions. And this is, again, where Weasleyness might be interpreted of Steven's answers here. Well, you've done it before in the past. It seems like you're having a unique struggle when I'm bringing your attention to something that you seemed fine doing flippantly in the past, right? Now, I'm going to look at the chat. I'm going to see what you Mr. Girl people think. Is that where you're coming from? Is that kind of where you're getting the Weasley thing from? Is that at least part of your problem with this? I'm going to take a second to just check in with you guys and see how I'm doing. I love my wife to pieces, but man, I don't even care if she says if she is wrong or not. Can we please just stop talking about this? I feel you. Would you get in trouble from audiences backlash, or is this an unknown code and that I don't like poking that bear at all? For a variety of reasons. Saying both he is a Nazi and he isn't a Nazi isn't contradictory. Sage moment from Steven. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good. I think the actual meta conflict here is that Destiny doesn't believe that words refer to anything, whereas Mr. Girl believes that words always refer to something. I don't think either of them are that crazy. I don't think Steven, like, now we're painting Steven as Vosh, where words don't mean anything, man, and they're like socially constructed, man, and like fucking, you know, it's all subjective, man. Like, I don't think Steven's at that point, and he hates people that do that. I don't think he's at that point. I also don't think Mr. Girl believes that words always mean something all the time, and it's only one thing. At least for other people. I think he recognizes that in himself and expects it from others, but I think he keeps running into the wall enough that he's acutely aware that's not how other people think, even if he disagrees with it. Look, I like to slob on Steven's dick as much as the next guy, but if anti-Semitic ethnostatist isn't a good enough definition for Nazi, then he needs to give us a working definition. Okay. Rem argument, haha, language works differently, but yeah, you're right, I was exaggerating. Okay, yeah. And I do agree with you in principle that they have different ideas about the way that language works, and that's creating a sticking point for the whole conversation as well. Mr. Girl is asking for Destiny's definition, but Destiny's definition will change based on the context, which is frustrating. I think the conflict here is that Destiny doesn't think there is any value in calling Nick a Nazi. He believes Nazi is just a label you can slap on someone so you can dismiss him. I mean, he thinks that too, but we're not discussing that here. That's not kind of the forefront of whatever we're talking about. So it will be later, but it's not now. I think Steven misspoke. I meant to say, I don't know what you mean by Nazi. Maybe. Hasn't he refused to give a working definition? Yeah, because he doesn't think a definition will apply in all situations and circumstances, like with women. The problem with that is you dismiss them and then you can't actually refute their arguments. Maybe. The real meta here is that Destiny tries to be a language chameleon and it fucks him. He will use words the way whoever is talking to him uses them. The first part, yes. The second part, no. In my opinion, but I did ask for the Mr. Girl opinions, so I'm getting them. Because you don't know what they are, Nazi is like the N-word, no pun not intended. Tell me, is so and so actually a N-word? Define exactly what an N-word is. Well said. I'm asking myself the same question in exactly the same wording.
Nazi is a strictly defined term. I can clearly compare it to Nick's stated positions and figure out whether or not he is or is not a Nazi. So for instance, if we go by the definition of he was part of the National Socialist Party, he's not a Nazi. If we go by the definition of has some vague anti-Semitic beliefs and is fascist, he might be a Nazi or is a Nazi. If we go by this or that...
Do you think his anti-Semitic beliefs are vague?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because he doesn't currently advocate for genocide or ethno-states. He doesn't currently advocate for, well, it depends now on how we define anti-Semitic, I guess. Anti-Semitic in reference to Nazi, or anti-Semitic in terms of like just doesn't like Jewish people.
Whatever you meant when you used the word.
Well, if you don't know, hold on.
Definition.
If you don't know what I meant when I used the word, then for you to say, well, don't you think he is that, when you don't even know what I mean when I say that, I'm not saying disingenuous intention from your part, but you're asking me an empty question. You don't actually even know what I'm saying at that point.
One of us is being disingenuous when that exchange happens. I agree, and we both think it's the other.
I don't think we're both being disingenuous. I think that we both have in our mind an understanding of what anti-Semitic means. That's the whole point of this conversation.
I think you're being disingenuous when you say he has vague anti-Semitic beliefs.
Do you agree?
I believe that you have a definition of anti-Semitic, and you have a definition of specific, and I believe that Fuentes' beliefs meet both of those criteria.
Okay.
Oh man, there's no way I can have them both in frame because of the way that Steven has set this up. Oh man. Oh man. You know what I can do? I can get super fancy with it. I can put this one here. I can duplicate it. I can duplicate it. Oh, I can't duplicate it. Oh, I can copy paste though. I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do this, and wonderful, wonderful. I can do this, and we are good. Having them in frame isn't really important. It is to me. It is to me.
Do you believe that different opinions of what could be anti-Semitism exist?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then if that's the case, when I ask, or when you ask, is Nick Fuentes anti-Semitic, we have to define that. If I just say yes or no, we could be both talking about different things, right?
We could, but I trust you to have a pretty reasonable definition of anti-Semitic.
No, not when we're literally debating the meanings of these words. These are the beetle in the boxes. You don't know what anti-Semitic is when I say it.
Okay, I think that's an obfuscation to say that that's what we're doing.
Okay, here's a question. Is somebody that makes an anti-Semitic joke an anti-Semite?
No.
Okay, is somebody that thinks that Jewish people have a disproportionate outlay of control of media or entertainment in the United States anti-Semitic?
It depends how much time they spend thinking about that, but if just thinking that, no.
Okay. Is somebody that believes that Israel has
I had this argument with Roey last night, and I was screaming at her and calling her stupid because she claimed God doesn't exist. And I said, God literally, obviously exists. Every word literally exists. Checkmate, atheist. If God doesn't exist, why is it a word? My soul is leaving my body.
It's an unfair treatment of Palestinians anti-Semitic. No. Is somebody that is anti-Zionist, so they don't support like the nation of Israel, or they believe that Israelis engage in apartheid against Palestinians, are they anti-Semitic?
No.
Is somebody that wants to curb the influence, the disproportionate influence that Jewish people have over media, are those people anti-Semitic?
Starting to get there, yeah.
Okay, starting to get there. So I think that the anti-Semitism that I've seen... one final question. Is somebody that makes anti-Semitic jokes an anti-Semite?
Oh, wait,
I think it depends on the context or how
Sure.
often. At some point, if you keep making anti-Semitic jokes, at some point I'm going to start thinking of you as hating Jews. Yeah.
Sure. So,
but I don't agree that this is the conversation. Like,
well, hold on,
I feel
no,
like
this is this is the conversation. You don't want to have.
I don't agree.
I know.
Are we
you're wrong,
disagree about
but
what
you're
the
wrong.
conversation is?
This is
Okay,
the conversation.
okay.
This
Okay,
because you're saying you're
I just
asking
need to
me.
make this.
I want to say something real quick. Roey, thank you. Thank you for being such a strong Book Smarts supporter. I have heard in the background very positive things about how you talk about me. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I see you. I see you. Thank you.
Clear that
somebody,
I don't.
that's fine
I
that you
don't
think
what
that.
you're doing.
You're asking me,
Okay,
is somebody
okay.
X? And I'm telling you, we need to define X. And now we're walking through now, and you can see how complicated it is to define X.
I don't think I don't agree. I guess
You're wrong though. This isn't an agree or disagree.
So it's up to
You're
you.
wrong.
It's up to you. It's up to you. I can either make my case for why I don't think this is the right conversation, why I think it's obfuscating to frame it this way, or we can stay in your frame and I'll continue down your line of questioning. I'm happy to go either way, but I do need to interject and say that I don't think this is right.
I'm trying to point out to you the futility of the initial question: is he a Nazi? The first qualifier we're getting to Nazi is anti-Semitism, and you've already admitted that who is considered anti-Semitic can be up for discussion. There's a broad range of what is considered anti-Semitic. If there's a broad range of what is anti-Semitic, there's probably a broad range of what is a Nazi. So asking the question, is he a Nazi, is by definition, is definitionally an open-ended question. But when I point out,
I don't agree with that.
it logically follows. It's deductively true.
I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with your premise, and I don't agree with your framing. But if you want to keep asking about anti-Semitism, I will answer your questions, and I will be patient, and I will not interrupt. But I do want to interject that I think you're obfuscating by even framing it this way.
Okay, I think it's going to be impossible to move me off of this framing, but if you make a very compelling argument, I can be moved. So go for it.
When I talk about the definitions of these words, I'm talking about your definition.
You don't know what my definition is on any of these words.
That's right. Absolutely, I don't. But I know you decently well, and I trust you to formulate a definition of anti-Semitism that I would probably agree with, or that I think has utility. I also trust you to formulate a definition of Nazi, pedophile, murderer, rapist. All these words are words that you use a lot. You run into other people using them, and 99% of the time when I hear you argue about them, I agree with you. So even if it's not going to be my definition, I'm talking about your definition. So whatever your definition is, I'm fine with you using in this conversation. I don't even need to know what it is, and I'm not even going to ask you what it is.
Okay.
If I said if is Nick Fuentes a Nazi and you said no, that would mean a lot to me. I'd probably ask you why you said that, but I wouldn't start picking apart your definition of Nazi. So the framing of again, we have an equal sign. We got anti-Semite on one side, and we got Nick Fuentes on the other. And the question is the equal sign deserved?
Yeah.
I'm saying, you, in your heart, do you think Nick Fuentes is a Nazi? However you define Nick Fuentes.
Super chat 20 Swedish crowns. It logically follows. It's deductively true. I don't mean to referee fights that I haven't been there for, but sounds like you lost that one pretty hard, Roy.
It logically follows. It's deductively true.
The conflict that Destiny doesn't seem to get is that Max wants Destiny to state his own signified/signifier relationship with the word Nazi, since it may not be the same in his brain as in his audience's. I actually don't think he cares to do that. I think all he cares to do is have a solid yes or no answer to, is Nick Fuentes a Nazi? And then he wants it repeated over and over and over again.
However you define him being that, is it his secret beliefs? Is it what he does? Is it what he says? Is it his effect on the world? Whatever. Is it his fan base? Whatever the fuck you want it to be, you can do whatever you want with it. And you can define Nazi however you want. But I think, so what I'm saying you have a moral imperative to do is not to agree with me that Nick Fuentes is a Nazi. It's to formulate an opinion of Nick Fuentes, formulate an opinion of Nazi, and then make a decision about how you're going to use these words, or if you're not going to use these words. What's concerning to me is that you're using the word Nazi in a serious way, in a playful way. You're saying he is a Nazi, and you're saying he isn't a Nazi. And my problem with this is I believe Nick Fuentes' game plan is to make it confusing whether he's a Nazi or not, and I believe that you are introducing the same confusion that unnecessarily
I understand.
by making it into a semantic argument.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything that you've laid out in this argument, I believe, proves my paradigm and how I view the language being used. Okay. So, but you are, in my opinion, misrepresenting, not intentionally, but I think you're misrepresenting the strength of the words that you're using. So you say, for instance, is somebody a Nazi? The way that you define this Nazi word, or pedophile, or murderer, or rapist, is done in a tribalistic manner. You're not appealing to an objective definition of Nazi. You're telling me, I trust you, I know you, I think that we'll agree on the definitions roughly for these words. That's the problem, is that when different tribes of people are connecting on the internet, they've tried.
I get you, Daniel, but it doesn't read that way. Dude, when the fuck is my meeting? Am I done? Can I go? I don't think it gets any better. No, I still have an hour and a half. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. I feel like a year ago, Steven would have never said some shit like this. He used to say that deconstructing social constructs is useless about reconstructing them, but he's honestly, I'm shooting from the hip here. This is completely a feels argument, but it feels like uncharacteristically not Destiny-like the entire argument. It does feel that way. It feels like he has one principle which he now needs to hold on to for fucking dear life because it represents every one of his friends. And it'll ruin him if he doesn't hold on to it. And that idea is that labels. What are labels? Labels, we don't need labels. If I were to start labeling people in conversations with these people who bad labels would easily fall upon, I wouldn't be able to have conversations with them very well anymore. You know? So therefore, let's chill out on labels. I've said that before, right? Yes? Yes, I have said that before. I've said the labels are not helpful. I'm going to triple down on that. They're so unhelpful, I won't even ponder it. I mean, the labels are so complicated. When you say Nazi, do you mean that they lived during the time of the Nazis in Germany? I mean, if that's the case, then is anybody really a Nazi? Right? I mean, a fruitless endeavor, to be sure. Especially given all my friends seem to fit in with really bad terms, and if I were to bring it up to them, then it would be very distracting for the larger conversation and hurt my ability to speak with them into their audiences. You know what? He also had, and I never talked about this, a very, very, very frustrating conversation with Mr. Fanatic, I believe it was, or GSU Gambit. I get them mixed up. It's not because I'm racist.
I think this fight conclusively proves who's autism or not. Destiny has ADHD, but not autism. Whereas Imardrol and Booksmarts have autism.
Thanks. They had a conversation where all the Fanatic was trying to do is compel Steven to recognize and bring it up in a conversation that there is a racial dimension to some particular issue. I forgot what it was. And he fought so hard against it. And it's like, I feel like, why are these conversations going so poorly? You know that there is. You should be able to calmly say like, oh, there definitely is. If I see the opportunity to bring it up in the future, I could. But I find that lately, it makes it really hard to have conversations with people when I do that. So if you don't see me doing that, that might be part of it. It's just going to be really difficult to bring up in these conversations, whatever. But I do recognize that. But it goes just so poorly because he's got to rail against this so hard, like much harder than he probably needs to. Like same with this Nick thing. Like I feel like we don't need to rail against this hard, and here we are. And when you're trying to argue that like Nick Fuentes is maybe not anti-Semitic or like maybe not a Nazi or probably certainly not a Nazi, like you're going to trigger the fuck out of people to keep pursuing this because it seems on its face to be like a very silly thing to say when even you joke about it, right? And it's a losing argument, frankly, in much the same way that the woman arguments on the left are like really losing arguments because optically speaking, they're awful, even if they might be correct. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh, the combo where he started playing the piano. Yeah. And it's like, he's not being like unreasonable or whatever. It was just really sad. And I felt really bad for the dude, because there are times where like they've had conversations where I feel like the piano is justified. He's going on and whatever. But it's like, bro, his point is correct here. Just give on the point and then move on and like casually end the conversation. Like, I don't think it needed to go the way that it went. The problem is Destiny thinks of himself of it having his emotions cloud his judgment. It's his blind spot because he is friendly with those. There is something inside him that fights it. Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know, bro. But it's already been addressed. Destiny has a bigger feelings on the fact, use people different definitions and internet context to be taken out of everything. I butchered that at the end on purpose, but I struggled to read the beginning, so I feel like it's deserved. Was it the reparations talk? It was the reparations talk. Also going poorly because he has no frame of reference in semiotic analysis. I don't even know what that means. I don't know what any of that means, sorry. But labels exist. There is a word for it. Okay, let's just stop, because now you're going to make me go crazy. I just had a sentient point I wanted to make about this. Okay, let's continue.
Tribalistically determined what the definitions of some of these broader words are. If I talk to a lot of people on the right, things like groomer and pedophile are going to be broadly applied across the LGBT group because they also trust each other to have a tribalistic family way of defining these words. So when you ask me, I want you to formulate an opinion of Nick Fuentes, and I want you to formulate an opinion of all of these things to tell me like what you feel about these things. What I'm pushing back on is that that's fine, and if it's in a one-on-one conversation, maybe I'll say it, but in front of an audience, there's all sorts of different tribes butting up against each other with different definitions that are all different. So when you ask me, is somebody a Nazi?
Sentient point, he omega low. Ha! He said sentient. Ha!
Booksmarts is a racist. Well, only against the Palestinians. All right, what do you mean by that, bruh? What do you mean is a racist? I fight against that a lot. Just because I'm a Republican does not make me a racist, bruh.
Referring to 27 different things all at once. And I don't want to answer yes to that because I can't commit him to everybody's different definition of the word Nazi. We already had a conversation. We can't even.
Good to have you, Ira. You're coming in at a time where I've lost it, bro. I've lost it. I'm just patiently waiting for the timer to click down so that I can go to my meeting. Actually based? No, not actually based. Not actually based. Don't say that. A bit of fairness for the Fnatic convo. Fnatic came in super hot, and I think it made Tiny not amenable. I don't think that's a good excuse when somebody's as good at having conversations as Steven. I don't think Steven would let himself have that excuse, but maybe.
Agree on what anti-Semitism is. And you want me to agree on a definition of Nazi that I would hold somebody to publicly?
I don't want you to agree with other people. I want you to agree with yourself. Say your definition, and then that'll be it. And people will know what you meant when you said it, just like you gave the definition of the word pedophile.
That's not true.
Pedophile. You used the word pedophile just now.
If I was to,
wait, let me finish.
It's pronounced Roy. How is that not obvious?
Now who's interrupting who? You used the word pedophile just now, and you said, here's my definition of pedophile. Other people have different definitions of pedophile. This one is mine. And then you used the word. No ambiguity, no confusion. If there's 27 definitions, you just got rid of 26 of them, and then you're fine using the word. When it comes to the word Nazi and Nick Fuentes, you don't want to do that. And that's all I'm asking you to do, is have your definition, tell us what it is, and then use it.
Okay. That is not true. Everything you just said is not true. You're worried that he is going to play in my definition if I'm not willing to like stake out a moral position on it. But what you just said, I just want you to say if he adheres to your definition of Nazi. Well, what if I define Nazi in a really strict sense and I say no? You're not going to be happy with that. You're going to have a problem with that.
Then
right?
just do it. Then just do it and have him have the problem with it. Why do we cut a gazillion steps ahead to like to like thwart the argument? Like $20 coming down the pipe. From I love you, Ryan.
My understanding of Destiny's argument is that the labels don't matter as much as the positions that define them. The labels themselves also change with context, so it's not contradictory to use them with different meanings.
I understand all that. I really do. And we said that at the very beginning of this conversation. I understand both of those. I don't disagree with you. Those are also his points. I think the rationale behind why we fight so much or struggle to understand Mr. Girl's points on particular things, that's the more interesting place to go. And that's kind of where we're going at this point. And he hasn't made the position thing a point yet, because we're not at that point in the conversation yet, believe it or not. Love you though, Booksmart's. Always glad to hear your opinions. Yeah, for sure. And I do agree. Those are his points. We did say those at the beginning. So old Booksmart's has himself covered, okay? I do understand those points. But boy, oh boy, have they not come out yet. And what we have right now is kind of really bad. Semiotic analysis is studying the conveyance of meaning through words, symbols, speech, etc. Your Saussures and Derridas and Wittgensteins, etc., etc. We all know those. Yes, that's what I mean when I say semiotic analysis. It's elementary, but for the people at home, the uneducated, unwashed masses of this world that you and I, we have a particular kind of burden to educate and carry on into the future. For those people, that's the only reason I bring it up. Two sophisticated gentlemen such as you and I. It's grade school, truly. I love that voice. Okay. I have no idea what any of those people are, bro. But yeah, you could just, the beginning part makes sense to me. This entire conversation, it feels like Destiny is anticipating the next question, refuses to properly answer the question. The current question for fear of the next one. Yeah, a little bit.
This problem with it. My problem is that you're obfuscating and creating confusion for Fuentes'
I understand.
benefit
You've said this 50
and for your own
times.
benefit.
Let me
then don't tell me I'm gonna. Don't then wait.
Okay.
Then when you say you're gonna have a problem with it, I might not like it if you say the word Nazi is relegated to only describe people who are dead. We can never use it to describe somebody who's alive, because if they were alive, they'd be over 120 and they'd be the oldest person on Earth or something. If you're going to use the word Nazi that strictly, I'm going to have a problem with the utility of your definition. But that's a different problem than the problem I'm having. Your goal in the conversation is not to make me happy, and that's not what I'm asking you to do. That's an unfair framing. I'm asking you specifically to have a definition of Nazi, tell us what it is, and then have a definition of Fuentes, and tell us if you think he meets that definition. Or if you don't have a definition.
This was a bad showing for Dusty, to be honest. Usually a fan of him. I will say, if I was as clout hungry as you guys thought that I was, this would be a really good place for me to invest the time and energy into writing down some notes and then arguing with Steven on stream about it. Because yes, I agree. This is something where it went so wrong in ways that it absolutely did not need to. And if you go through it and you take notes and you word it in a good way and you keep your cool, it could be a very good conversation. It could be good clout. It could be good attention. I don't care about that clout more than I do the time that I would spend on that.
This will sound really condescending, pretentious, and whatever, but I really think that having read so much philosophy, structuralism, post-structuralism, yes, Wittgenstein, etc., makes Destiny's position seem obviously reasonable.
Damn. Daniel dropping 200 Swedish cucks to call out our friend in the chat, our educated fellow, to argue with them. That's crazy. That is crazy. I would be interested to know what our friend has to say about that. I would advise that you two have a back and forth about that in the chat and put an at the beginning of every single message so I know not to read it. Because that sounds like such an interesting meeting of the minds, because I've read none of that and I could not comment on it. And I don't believe in philosophy. I believe in God. So I can't have that conversation, but you guys definitely could. Swedish have their own money? Yep. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Just say you don't have a definition.
No, I was agreeing with him, I think. That's how little I understood either of you. Maybe we're agreeing with him. I have no idea. Or head on over to the Discord. Yeah, I'm actively cucking my mods here. I'm like, hey, do the thing that I tell the moderators nobody's allowed to do. Have an extended back and forth in the chat. Yeah, when you know a lot about linguistics, his argument is pretty reasonable, in my opinion. Maybe. I have no idea.
I don't know what a Nazi is, and I don't want to use that word, and then stop using it.
Okay,
or
let's say
I have a definition, but I don't know what Nick Fuentes is. But my problem is you won't answer this clearly and consistently and concisely.
Okay, so you just want me to give you my definition of Nazi?
Yes.
And then say, okay. So I think that my definition of Nazi generally employs, number one, a high level of conspiratorial anti-Semitism, not just actual observations about Jewish people. So claiming that there are some type of like insidious plots can be a big part of that anti-Semitic thing, especially plots against your native race, right? So that's a big form of anti-Semitism. So number one, that's a pretty important qualifier. Number two is usually some sort of outward violence, or at the very least state-sponsored violence against ethnic minorities or other undesirables. So for instance, having like a state-sponsored plan to export or kill certain people of certain ethnic groups or certain people of like LGBT persuasions or other types of quote-unquote undesirables, right?
Okay, and then, can I ask a clarifying question?
Go ahead.
Does wanting state-sponsored violence count, or you're saying you have to actually act in state-sponsored violence?
No, it'd be the desire for it would make you right. And then thirdly is generally Nazis want to build some form of fascist state. So meaning they don't care about fucking democracy. They don't give a fuck about fucking Congress or any shit like that. Like they want a single party, populist ruler, authoritarian.
Boy, oh boy, I sure do hope that we have other parts of this definition, because as it stands, I don't think it's looking too good for Nick. Nick certainly does joke quite a bit about his conspiratorial anti-Semitism and kind of not joke about it. And it's against the native race. So not looking good there. A desire for outward violence against ethnic minorities and undesirables. Well, I mean, hey, legislating against certain, liberties and stuff for people that want to go and, interracially marry and do other kinds of things that, ethnic minorities should have the freedom to do. I mean, we could stretch the word violence, but goodness gracious, that's not sounding good. And as admitted later in the conversation, the desire to build a fascist state is something that Steven says that he could see Nick being in favor of because of his, kind of kooky idea about a Catholic monarchy that I don't really believe Nick about, in my opinion. I think that's some cover. But, Steven admits this later, so I certainly hope there's a fourth part of this definition, bro.
Possibly totalitarian, vertical control of society. That's usually what I think of when I'm thinking of like neo-Nazi or Nazi. Those are the things that I'm thinking of.
Oh no.
Insofar as that goes, Fuentes' outward positions are not there on, I don't think, on any of those three topics.
What?
Maybe a little bit on the third one, but on the first two, that is not his outward positions. So if you were to ask me, is America First a neo-Nazi?
I have a great need for a document. I need Rose Risk's document on all of the quotes. I need it. So if anybody has it, I would appreciate that you DM it to me on Discord, or you post it in the stream discussion channel on the Discord, where you could discuss any of the streams that you watch, and I do respond there. I need it because and I have become somewhat of a Fuentes consumer, and I would sign off on this 100%. So Destiny is so binder debate pro here. I don't even know what any of that means. To the point of saying, I don't think Destiny is refusing to answer the question. I think he disagrees with the very question itself, and Mr. Girl disagrees with seeing Destiny for himself. I don't even know what any of that means. Okay.
Movement or a Nazi movement? Probably not. I don't think so. Now, are there neo-Nazis in that movement? Almost certainly so. It's a large movement and it's very far right. And I think a lot of the rhetoric can be kind of amenable to those people. And if you ask me, is Nick Fuentes secretly a neo-Nazi? He could be. But that would be my stated positions on those three things. On Fuentes, on America First as a movement, the people in America First, and inside Nick's mind. So where would you go then from there?
I want to ask you just bullet point by bullet point.
Go.
You don't believe that Fuentes think engages in conspiratorial anti-Semitism?
I haven't heard it as part of his stuff recently, but I could be shown clips that would convince me otherwise. Let me give a quick example of the two of these things. So if he says something like, I think that Jewish people all tend to vote or push politics in a certain way where they're kind of like, they want to...
Most of the guys who end up fighting in...
Of course, it's not time stamped. I want the time stamped clip of Sneeko talking with, yeah, here it is. Here it is.
What do you think about the Jews?
Well, I think it's totally legit. I mean, I've gotten canceled for saying this.
Well,
but,
I don't know what you mean by totally legit. Like, I've been getting deeper into the conspiracy things, and people have been coming up to me about that. And like, it is true. Please be careful, like, about the wording used like that. I don't want them to come on my ass. But obviously, pause. I didn't mean to say that. I don't want them to try to cancel me. But do they control all the money in the world? Are they behind the scenes on most of these issues?
Well, you know, I'm a guy that I talk about that a lot on my show, and that's a big part of why I've been, like, canceled. And here's the thing. You know, you got to be careful about it, because you could definitely go too far and say some things that aren't true. Jews are very organized. That's what you have to understand. I mean, that's why.
What do you think about the Jews?
Always support Israel.
Well, I think it's totally legit.
No check boxes here, sir. You're fucking... Honestly... If you lend that much credibility or charitability to Nick Fuentes, I think you have taken the Booksmarts pill in lethal amounts. I am the charitability guy, and I will read between the lines here. And if you're unwilling to, I think you have become lost. You've become lost. That's what I'll say. You have become lost. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
And they're kind of like fucking always looking out for themselves and shit, and it fucks the rest of us over a little bit. I don't think that rises to the level of Jewish conspiracy. But if he said...
Was just kidding, sorry, /S. Yeah, I just... I hope it's /S for me, guys.
Something akin to like what Lauren Southern you say with The Great Replacement, where he's like, I think there's a plan where these people are intentionally trying to eradicate white people, then that rises to a level of like Jewish conspiracy.
I'm just saying, based on what you know of him.
Based on his recent rhetoric.
Based on what you have already heard him say.
Yeah. Based on this is what I've heard recently. But this is something that I could be moved on. Somebody could send me a clip and go, you could say something like, oh yeah, Jewish people, I think they're actually really trying to fuck over white people. Like, oh yeah,
okay, so are you saying I don't know? Or are you saying, so like if somebody asked you about me, they said, do you think that Max engages in anti-Semitic conspiratorial thinking?
No, absolutely. I don't think so. I've never heard you even flirt with the ideas before.
Okay, so at somewhere between me and Nick or Lauren, us flip switches or a switch flips, and then you say, okay, now I think you're maybe blah blah. So, are you saying you don't know? Are you saying probably not, yes or no?
He's never brought it up anywhere in a convo with me or alluded to it in a debate that I've seen him have, and I haven't been presented with content. So, but obviously his ideology lends itself towards those types of beliefs. So it's possible, but I wouldn't accuse him of having those beliefs because I haven't heard them. I haven't had them presented to me. There are a lot of people email me about shit that he says and things. Yeah.
Are you not willing to give a one-word answer?
No, not on this. No, and I think asking for one is bad faith. I would make that accusation. Because clearly it's... I don't care.
I think it would be bad faith for me to attack you for not giving one.
Okay.
But I want one, and if you don't want to give it, that's fine.
Okay, what is your one-word question?
I want to make clear to you, DVB, Steven and I can disagree and not argue. That's the thing. I think Steven knows in order for me to argue with him, it would require so much prep. And he said this with other people, so I know that he knows this. It would require so much prep. And I'm unwilling to do it on this particular topic. I just don't care to. And I'm at a point in my life right now where like, I don't want to spend the time doing that. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm just going to disagree with him. I think that's fine. That is totally okay. We can disagree and not have some big argument over it. And I don't want to prep for it. So I think that's where we're at. If somebody else wants to do it, I think Rose Wrist has given you all of the tools to do it. So if you want to make that your fight, go for it. I don't want to spend all that time and energy. Like, imagine this framing. Imagine if we went back in time 2 years And I was to tell you that there needed to be a debate with Steven about whether or not Nick Fuentes is a Nazi. Like, I don't know. It's very ridiculous to me. And I don't feel like I feel like I'm going up against a wall of, very difficult energy that is kind of pushing him in the opposite direction. I just don't care to. It's not going to be fun. I know he always acts like that, and that's more related. I don't know what that means. Bro, even just 1 year ago, it's actually crazy. It is a losing thing optically for him. And for that reason, I don't know, and many others. And my time, I would rather do other things. I just don't care about this shit that much, dude. I don't care about this shit that much. And I don't care to risk like it blowing up in my face and a bunch of fucking DGGers hating me and having to deal with that for a while either. Like there's so many reasons not to do it that I'm just not interested in it. If it was something else for sure, but not this stupid fucking thing. To get why Destiny seems so ultra charitable to Nick, you might want to talk to Muscadine on Disc. I don't even care to do that. I don't even care to do that. What's your job interview? It's I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to talk about it until anything is set in stone. I don't want to give you guys details about it. I don't. What's
your job interview?
It's related to creators. I will say that it's related to like helping creators. It's at a company that aims to help creators. That's what I'll say. 2 years, I got on board the Booksmarts train from the Voosh station and then found Destiny through the Booksmarts works with Steven to review and improve his rhetoric. It is an interesting path that you took. And thank you for the 100 Swedish crowns. I do appreciate it. I've been bankrolling this stream, Daniel, and I do see it. Internet creators like streamers or something similar? Yeah, like content creators. So, yeah, all kinds of internet creators, YouTubers, TikTokers, streamers, all of the above. All of the above. And we'll see where I fit into that. That's what today's topic is about.
I guess the choices I would give you are, the question is, does Nick Fuentes engage in anti-Semitic conspiracies? Or traffic in them?
Yeah, I'd say no, but it would be based on what I've seen so far. My mind could be changed to that. Somebody can send me a clip in it, but as of what I've seen so far, no.
Okay. And then what was the second criteria for being a Nazi? It wasn't fascism, it wasn't dictatorship.
It's usually calling for like violent pogroms or pogroms and shit like that, and like trying to like put people in camps of like undesirables and ethnic people. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that Nick Fuentes wants to do that?
I haven't seen it. I haven't heard or seen that, and it seems like he speaks to the contrary of that a lot.
Will you give a one-word answer?
The answer would be no. I don't think he engages in that. No.
Okay, so no conspiracy, no anti-Semitic conspiracy, no desire for violence against minorities.
Yes. No, as a yes, as a no. Yeah.
Right, got it. Okay. And the third one is fascism.
Fascism, I'm not as sure because he says weird shit about how he wants like a Christian monarchy. I don't know what the fuck he means by that, if he's actually sincere on that. I know that his group, he tries to get people to engage with the political system. So, like, he went up and supported Lori Loomer and shit. He might be illiberal. He might be anti-democratic, though. I don't know if he would, like, lean full into fascism. It seems like he could or would, but I don't hear him talk about forms of government much. It feels like he's mostly concerned with getting his people to engage in the current political system. But he could easily be a fascist, or that's what like his end goal would be. I'm just not sure. I don't talk to him about like what his ideal style of government is. And when it comes up, he says Christian monarchy. I don't know what the fuck that means.
Okay, so what's your one-word answer, if you want to give one?
I would say on that one, probably maybe or yes.
Okay. Will you pick one or no?
Is he a fascist?
Yeah.
I think he would be. I'll say yes on that one. I'll give you that one.
Okay, so he's a fascist, but you don't think he meets the other two criteria?
Yeah.
Have you read
I'm
Rose
saying yes to
Wrist's?
fascist because he feels very anti-democratic to me. Yeah. So, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Have you read Rose Wrist's quote list?
Not yet. I never read quote lists from anybody for anything. But if somebody wants to give me more substantive stuff, like I'll go through it. But I'm not usually interested in like, here's 50 quotes over the past 6 years.
Okay. A cross-examining question.
Mm-hmm.
If your answer to...
Which is, again, sometimes he'll say things and I'm like, I don't know. What did he just do with Vosh? Right? Like, to just offhandedly dismiss quotes, like, bro, what the fuck is going on with him? He gets kind of nutty where he just like way overextends on like shit like this. Like that's the same way the Fnatic conversation felt to me. Is like, whoa, we're going like hardcore against this, like 180%. And I feel like it's weird coming from you. Like I get not caring about what people said a long time ago, but like to just offhandedly dismiss looking at quotes about this guy on this topic when you're spending all this fucking time talking to Mr. Girl about it, like, I don't know, bro. Hey, Bucko, I think context can be important, but sometimes words are what they are, right? I don't know about that, bro. I don't know. I don't think anything exists without context. In a metaphysical sense or whatever the fuck.
To two of the criteria are no. Why did you say he's basically a Nazi? I think the time before last we talked and on Twitter.
I already told you on Twitter for the purposes of
saying the Vasha. Yeah, but he doesn't know unless he looked at it what the Rose Wrist thing contains. And if it's links to things that he said, you can find context by doing that. Does a quote list for Nick include the full context behind each one? Who knows? He doesn't know. That's my whole point. Is this an offhanded dismissal of something that he doesn't give me reason to believe that he knows the answer to that question?
Fighting with Lance, because it's funny from the tweet. That if Lance believes that he's truly a Nazi.
Oh God, here we go. Now I'm getting a gazillion ats. This is part of not understanding how communities like Nick's operate would help. Vels, you're going to quickly turn into Solivola and I'm going to unmod you and ban you for today. Because if you repeat yourself at me, I'm not going to take it well. The cause, because I waste my time and energy and then I get frustrated. The cause oh God, I'm not going to read this because you didn't even write it well. Subvert/use value. Okay, I'm ignoring you guys for a little bit. You've triggered all of my patience.
One joke he would pick out, the thing that didn't really have anything to do with Jews. That was stupid. And then I would have to know the context of the other conversation where he was like basically a Nazi.
Okay, so your general stance, it sounds like now, is you're saying he just doesn't meet the criteria for Nazi.
To truly be considered like a Nazi or Nazi?
By you, not truly, but by you.
I don't think so. Correct.
Okay. Do you see my concern about the vagueness introduced by using that words in different contexts and different ways to describe him? If he, even if he's just a fascist, creating a is he or isn't he narrative, do you see how that, do you see how that helps Trump in a way where then all the people...
No, I see how you think it does, but I disagree with all of that. I think that all of these words are fucked, regardless of my input.
Regardless of your input, do you see how a is he or isn't he a white supremacist narrative helped Trump?
Sure, I can, but I think people calling him a white supremacist helps Trump. I would accuse them more than any of the is he or isn't he people.
No. I'm not saying the is he or isn't he people. I'm saying just the whole narrative around him being confusion around...
This is another point where it's like, it's clear to me that he's like frustrated. He's not listening to Mr. Girl. I'm going to cut this short. Because I too am losing my patience. This is another good example of like Steven is frustrated in this moment. He's like, he didn't hear him the first time when it should have been really easy to. And I am losing my patience and I want to regain it before I have to do my job talk at the top of the hour. Hope you guys enjoyed. You Mr. Girl people, man. You drive me nuts.
Looks like rain.
Oh God, what wonderful thing does Daniel have to say? Surely it's
I never thought I'd say this, but this literally depends on what the meaning of the word is. The word Nazi is a word more than anything else.
Okay. Let me update the document with another color to indicate we have some confusion. Yeah, I hope we all had fun. Ha ha ha. Oh, so much fun. Ha. So funny. You know, that's how it is. Just stopped in a bit late. Hope you have a good one, Bucko. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll have a wonderful one. Thank you, Neandra Falls.
Thanks for enduring that.
I'm happy to provide you guys content. Okay, I'm trying to stream more, So thank you for the support today. Very cool. Big Mr. Girl lovers in the audience. I have a sneaking suspicion that we'll be covering more Mr. Girl stuff soon, because there's more than just this to cover. And it might be possible to get some TLDR, do this off stream like I wanted to in the first place. I knew I had to stream, and I didn't want to do this off stream and mean that we don't stream today. So I figured I would do it on stream, even if it's frustrating, not the way that I would want to do it. But here we are, So I showed you a bit of how I researched these reviews, how they play out. I'll try to do more of this behind the scenes and maybe do a stream for you guys. I don't know. But I'll be trying to stream more, be more present, be more available to you guys, and live up to my reputation as a clout shark. Because apparently that's where we're at with things. Thank you for the 200 Swedish crowns. Video game controller dances goofily under the word woot. Thanks, dude. And then we have 1.49 Great British pounds coming in from Sfaxon, a sparkling diamond. Thank you. Break a leg, Booksy. Stand back and stand by. Is that a Trumpism? As a Mr. Girl fan, it is kind of annoying that there is always something coming in the way when Mr. Girl is shown to be right. I don't really understand what you're saying. What I will say is this. After my brief, because I don't see it taking more than 30 minutes, interview tonight, I will be on the Discord. So if you want to talk with me, if you want to bring up your points about Mr. Girl, probably way better to do it in Discord than it is in chat. I'm in Discord quite a bit, especially lately. So check out the Discord, join it, ! Discord. If you're on the YouTube, the link is in the description of this video. I'm in there all the time. You can @ me if you have questions and I'll show up. That's probably a better forum to talk with me about stuff and for me to talk with you about stuff. I'm very available as a streamer. I'm in there quite a bit. I'll stay up until 7 a.m. gaming with people. It's pretty chill. We have a very good community of people on there. They're not debate bro people. They're really, really chill. It's just really good vibes in the Discord because we've done a really good job of hedging out all of the kind of awful people. And we have a solid base of really cool people in there. A lot of channels that are about shit that is not this, like cooking and pets and memes and anime and video games and whatever else. So I would highly recommend you go there. I'll be there tonight after my my work meeting. I'm going to go for a walk around the block, read some Dune, and try to chill out before then. And afterwards, again, I'll be on there. So I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good rest of your day, your night, your morning. Thank you for spending some of your time with me. And I will catch you in the next one. Unblock me. I have a new poem.
I have a new poem.
Okay. I didn't block you. You blocked me. I'm pretty sure I have no place in that. And if I do, DM me on Discord and tell me how to use it, because I don't even know how to use that app. You're the only person I talk to on there. So if you want an unblock to happen, you're gonna have to walk me through that process, because as far as I understand, you have to unblock me. That's what I'll say there. So if you said, I don't think of that word that much, I don't use it seriously, and I don't care that much about the word Nazi, he's just going to say you're lying and obfuscated. Maybe, bro. Unblock Salivola? That's a good point. I think you can do that, but I'll do that. Yeah, I'll unblock Salivola right now on YouTube. Okay, anywho, talk to you all later. I'll figure things out with you, Daniel, and